Chapter 81. The Seed of Doubt and Pansy's Love. In the school clinic, a heated debate unfolded among friends. "Harry, you're mistaken," Hermione countered with a hint of anger in her voice. "How can you possibly suspect John? He's our friend, and he's a Muggle-born himself." Even Ron, who often shared Harry's suspicions, found Harry's theory far-fetched. After all, John Wick had become a hero in their eyes, dispelling the fear surrounding the Slytherin heir and saving Gryffindor students from the deadly basilisk. The idea of doubting him seemed ludicrous. Despite their disbelief, Harry persisted, laying out his observations. "Consider who first discovered the basilisk. It was John," he pointed out. Hermione, unimpressed, retorted, "And if it weren't for John, you'd be wrongly accused by Filch of being a cat murderer by now." Harry, however, was undeterred. But what about the second incident? John was there with the basilisk when Colin was taking photos. If Colin hadn't gone to fetch a professor, no one would have known they were together. Doesn't that strike you as odd? Ron hesitated, sensing a sliver of truth in Harry's words. "Think about it," Harry continued. "How did John escape unscathed from an encounter with a creature as dangerous as the basilisk? He merely ended up resting in the hospital." "Perhaps John is just that strong," Hermione suggested, unwilling to entertain Harry's doubts. "Yes, he's powerful. He faced Slytherin's monster alone. But don't you find these coincidences a bit too convenient?" Harry pressed on, recalling a conversation he had with Malfoy that had sown the seeds of doubt in his mind. "John often vanishes without a trace. Each time the basilisk appears, John's reputation soars. It's as if—" Harry trailed off, implying that these events were orchestrated to elevate John's status. Hermione, visibly frustrated, argued, "That's absurd, Harry. John is a Muggle-born. Slytherin wouldn't ally with a Muggle-born." "What if he's not?" Harry proposed, causing Hermione to pause and Ron to express his surprise. "You mean John isn't a Muggle-born?" Ron asked. Harry, with a look of determination, theorized, "Maybe John has a squib in his family, making him a half-blood, and consider his friendship with Malfoy, who despises Muggle-borns the most." Hermione, skeptical, advised, "You're jumping to conclusions, Harry. You need to calm down." Ron agreed, suggesting that Harry might be overthinking due to stress. Despite their skepticism, Harry couldn't shake off his suspicions, especially after recalling John's vertical pupils during the dueling club. The seed of doubt had taken root in Harry's mind, making him increasingly wary of John. Meanwhile, John sneezed in his room, puzzled by the sudden chill. Glancing at two parchments on his table, he muttered, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." The parchments revealed themselves to be copies of the Marauder's map, showing identical moving footprints and names. Noticing Peter Pettigrew's name next to Ron's, John mused, "The Marauder's map isn't infallible. A powerful enough Confundus charm might just confuse it." John speculated that only a spell of 4th level or higher could trick the map, a feat likely beyond most at Hogwarts, except perhaps Professor Flitwick or the head of the 4th house. After deactivating the maps, John reflected on the ease with which he could now cast spells without a wand. He carefully stored the maps away, mindful of their value and the potential interest from the likes of the Weasley twins. As Christmas passed and a new term approached, Hermione's absence from class was noted, her transformation into a cat girl, leaving her indisposed for the time being. John often felt a bit isolated in class, overshadowed by a know-it-all who always seemed to be in competition with him. This sense of solitude was akin to the proverbial warrior in search of a worthy opponent, a quest for defeat. Meanwhile, Neville Longbottom returned to school brimming with joy, having earned his grandmother's praise. The physical trar, aining over the summer, had led to significant weight loss, a development that filled Mrs. Longbottom with both pride and concern. As June approached, Hermione Granger was discharged from the hospital, fully recovered from her ailment. However, John couldn't shake off the feeling that Harry Potter was keeping his distance. He wondered if Harry had discovered that he was the one who had inadvertently caused him trouble during the summer. Considering this, John thought it best to apologize. The preparation of the Felix potion was nearly complete, but he needed Harry's ability to speak Parseltongue to access the final ingredient. With the location of the entrance known, the only missing piece was Parseltongue. The heir of Slytherin had yet to reveal themselves, leading John to humorously speculate whether someone had accidentally taken the crucial paper to the bathroom. Regardless, John was determined to explore the Chamber of Secrets of Slytherin, seeing it as an opportunity not to be missed. He was aware that the chamber might not offer the same kind of challenges as the Gryffindors, but the thought of missing out was unbearable. The new semester brought a renewed sense of normalcy to Hogwarts. The castle echoed with laughter, and the Quidditch pitch was once again filled with Oliver Wood's fervent coaching. Tom, the puppy, had become a familiar sight, eagerly waiting at the Slytherin common room door for the students. Daphne Greengrass and Pansy Parkinson encountered Tom upon their return, with the latter appearing particularly distracted, her attention consumed by a diary. Daphne noticed Pansy's preoccupation and teased her about it, only to be met with a shy admission of love. The conversation took a playful turn, with Daphne trying to silence Pansy's teasing about her own crush. Tom, the puppy, watched the exchange with a tilted head, barking twice before attempting to climb the stairs. Daphne, seeing the struggle, picked him up, finding comfort in the small dog's presence. John's return coincided with this scene, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of disdain for the overly affectionate display towards Tom. Daphne, noticing John, thanked him for his care of Tom and subtly shifted the conversation towards Valentine's Day, hinting at a surprise planned by Professor Lockhart. John, however, was skeptical of any surprise Lockhart might have in store, given the professor's penchant for causing trouble. Despite the initial success of the dueling club, John was convinced that Lockhart needed to be kept busy with tasks like writing books, away from meddling in student affairs, to prevent any further disruptions. On the second day, John couldn't believe his eyes when he saw 12 dwarfs dressed as cupids approaching him. He instinctively covered his face in embarrassment, especially after realizing he had received a greeting card that had brought this spectacle to life. The situation was so absurd that he felt like he could die of embarrassment right there. Malfoy, witnessing the scene, was on the verge of bursting into laughter. However, he managed to restrain himself, aware that John's glare was fixed on him. The tension between the desire to laugh and the need to maintain composure added a layer of complexity to the moment, making it clear that their interactions were always charged with an undercurrent of rivalry and mutual observation. Chapter 82. The Completion of Felicia and the Riddle Medal. Your eyes are as mesmerizing as a salamander's, and your hair is as smooth as oiled silk, John read aloud, unable to suppress a grimace. Good heavens, what a dreadful attempt at a love letter. Malfoy couldn't help but burst into laughter at the description. John shot him a sullen look. I might as well dispose of it for you. It's probably one of Weasley's ridiculous pranks, Malfoy suggested, reaching out to take the letter. John, however, snatched it back hastily. No, let's just keep it, he decided, folding the letter carefully. If it had indeed been sent by a girl, discarding it would be unnecessarily cruel. Malfoy, brushing his hair back with a nonchalant gesture, turned his attention to Harry and announced loudly, Look, our savior has received a love letter. Shut up, Malfoy, Harry retorted, his patience worn thin by the dwarf's relentless teasing and refusal to leave him be. The comparison of his green eyes to those of a pickled toad, mirroring John's salamander-like description, made John suspect the Weasley twins' involvement. After leaving the auditorium, John sought out Lockhart with a specific request in mind. Since you're so fond of writing, why don't you write this for me? He demanded, tasking Lockhart with the creation of I Swing the Greatsword at Hogwarts. This relieved John from having to endure any more of Lockhart's antics. The completion of the Felicia potion marked a significant milestone. With the final ingredients added, the potion transformed into a substance as clear as water. John meticulously transferred the Felicia into a glass bottle shaped like a water bladder, using a dropper. After months of careful preparation, only a small quantity of the potion was produced. Sealing the bottle tightly, John finally allowed himself a moment of relief. The Felicia elixir shimmered with a crystal-clear brilliance, reflecting the flickering candlelight. It's now safe to venture into the secret chamber, John whispered to himself. He secured the bottle with an amulet string, fashioning it into a pendant. Understanding the potion's importance, he chose to wear it around his neck, concealed beneath his collar for safekeeping. John made his way to the second-floor girls' bathroom, the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets known only to him. After ensuring the coast was clear, he snapped his fingers, summoning the badge hidden behind the mirror. Catching it with his left hand, he noticed the stars on the badge glow a soft light blue. The snake remains hidden. Except for Myrtle, Harry and the others are unaware, he mused, pocketing the badge. Approaching a broken toilet, John knocked politely. "Myrtle, I need a favor from you," he called out. Myrtle emerged from the toilet, her voice shrill with indignation. "Always picking on Myrtle, aren't you?" "If you help me, I'll give you a present," John offered, attempting to navigate the situation with the tact he had learned from his time in the Celestial Dynasty. Upon hearing the promise of a gift, Myrtle's curiosity was piqued, though she remained skeptical. "You do realize I'm a ghost, right? How can I possibly receive a gift?" she questioned, referencing nearly headless Nick's predicament as an example of a ghost's limitations. John, undeterred, simply raised his wand towards Myrtle. "Just trust me," he reassured her, casting a spell that enveloped her in a puff of white smoke. From his bag, he retrieved a feather hairpin, which he then made appear in Myrtle's hand. "How is this possible?" Myrtle gasped, marveling at the hairpin. It felt as real in her hand as it would have in life, a tangible connection to the world she had left behind. In life, there exists a complex spell that can transform the essence of life into death, allowing wizards to refuse death and become ghosts. This realm of magic, which straddles the line between the living and the dead, is one John has chosen to explore. "It's a simple concept, really," John explained, though the reality was anything but simple. Material transformation between life and death. In the magical world, there are entities that exist in both realms, and I merely utilize their properties for my purposes. The hairpin he held was crafted from the feathers of a thestral and bore the Hogwarts crest, enabling it to exist as a ghost within the school's walls. John had delved into the darker aspects of magic, drawing upon the soul-manipulating spells found in Toxius magic as part of his experimentation. The ultimate goal of his research was a true ghost spell, capable of transforming individuals into ghosts upon their death. This venture into the manipulation of life and death was, by all accounts, a foray into black magic, fraught with peril and moral ambiguity. As John opened his palm, the hairpin disintegrated into a cloud of ashes and slipped through his fingers. With a smile, he turned to Myrtle. "Can you assist me now?" Myrtle, overjoyed at the prospect, darted around excitedly. John directed her attention to a faucet marked with a serpent, requesting her to investigate the pipe. Previously, John had ventured into it himself, but without the mechanism activated, he now relied on Myrtle's ghostly abilities to traverse freely. Ghosts, after all, could revisit places from their past, and fortunately, the Chamber of Secrets was constructed with Hogwarts' own magic. Utilizing the Spectre Charm, John granted Myrtle temporary autonomy, a feat made possible by his understanding of the Marauders map, which connected him to Hogwarts' magical infrastructure. Myrtle descended through the faucet, navigating to the chamber's depths. Approximately 15 minutes later, the sound of a toilet flushing signaled her return, though she emerged confused about her unexpected exit point. "How did I end up back here?" she wondered aloud. John, realizing his spell had malfunctioned, causing Myrtle to return to her starting location, expressed his disappointment. "It's unfortunate. My spell failed, bringing you back to where you began." Despite this setback, Myrtle shared a crucial observation. "I encountered a wall adorned with 2 intertwined snakes, but it was enchanted, barring my passage." That must be the entrance to the secret chamber," John mused, grateful for the information Myrtle had provided. After leaving the girls' bathroom, he pondered the necessity of involving Harry Potter. "It seems I cannot proceed without Harry. He is the key, for without a Parseltongue, the Chamber of Secrets remains beyond my reach." Unbeknownst to John, his musings were overheard by a passerby. Meanwhile, Harry Potter grappled with a sudden pain and a mysterious voice echoing in his mind. "He's the key. I need him." Visions flashed before him, including John's departure from the girls' bathroom and a glimpse of a trophy bearing Tom Riddle's name. Shaken from his reverie by Hermione's concerned calls, Harry agreed with Ron's suggestion that he needed rest, his behavior raising eyebrows among his friends. Elsewhere, John encountered Gemma Farley, who regretfully informed him of her failure to locate Tom Riddle's diary. Expressing his gratitude for her efforts, John reflected on the elusive nature of Voldemort, likening him to a detestable presence lurking in the shadows. This narrative, steeped in the exploration of dark magic and the quest to manipulate the boundaries between life and death, weaves a tale of ambition, mystery, and the unforeseen consequences of delving into the unknown. After concluding his conversation, John made his way back to the Slytherin dungeon. Once he was out of sight, Harry emerged from around the corner of the staircase. He gazed in the direction John had gone, his mind replaying the image of the gold medal he had seen in John's possession. Why is John so terrified of Riddle? Harry pondered, sensing that he was inching closer to unraveling the mystery. Driven by his curiosity, Harry decided to visit the trophy room, a place that had flashed in his mind during his earlier contemplation. Upon arriving, his eyes immediately found Riddle's medal prominently displayed and gleaming under the soft light. In the corner of the room, almost hidden in the shadows, lay a diary. It seemed as though it had been lying there, forgotten, yet patiently waiting to be discovered for a long time. Harry approached the diary with a mixture of apprehension and intrigue. The diary, seemingly innocuous, held an air of mystery that Harry couldn't ignore. It was as if the diary itself was calling out to him, promising answers to the questions that plagued his mind. As he picked up the diary, Harry felt a strange connection to it, a sense of importance that went beyond mere curiosity. He knew that this diary was key to understanding John's fear of Riddle, and perhaps even more secrets hidden within the walls of Hogwarts. With the diary in hand, Harry left the trophy room, his mind racing with possibilities. He was determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it might lead him. The diary, once a silent observer of the past, was now a beacon guiding Harry towards the answers he sought. Chapter 83. Harry and Tom Harry examined the Special Service Medal closely and noticed Riddle's name inscribed on it. He must have been exceptional, he mused, his gaze lingering on the list of past Maelstrom Council presidents. It seemed to Harry that this person must have been as commendable as John to have received such accolades. Suddenly, as if drawn by an unseen force, Harry's attention shifted to a corner of the room. There, almost blending in with the floor due to its aged appearance, was an old diary. "T.M. Riddle? Tom Riddle," he exclaimed upon discovering the diary and opening its faded cover. The first page bore a name that instantly reminded Harry of something John had mentioned. Unsure if this was the Riddle John had been searching for, Harry decided it was best to take the diary with him. Back in the common room, Harry's preoccupation with the diary did not go unnoticed by Hermione, who urged him to focus on his homework. Harry nodded absently, waiting until the room had nearly emptied before revealing the diary to Ron and Hermione. "What's this? It looks ancient," Ron remarked upon seeing the diary. "You're quite right, Ron. It's very old, at least 50 years, Hermione observed, noting the faded date. She flipped through the diary, her curiosity piqued by the name inscribed within. "T.M. Riddle? Who is this?" "I know that name," Ron began, recalling the medal he had polished countless times, but Harry interrupted him, his impatience evident. "It doesn't matter. John seems to be looking for this." "What?" Hermione was taken aback, assuming the diary belonged to John. "We should return it to him," she suggested. "No, Hermione, listen," Harry interjected, halting Hermione's intentions. He recounted his discovery in the trophy room. "Ron, remember when Malfoy mentioned the Chamber of Secrets being opened 50 years ago?" Harry asked, turning to Ron, who nodded in realization. "Perhaps Riddle was awarded the medal for uncovering the chamber back then," Harry proposed, his voice low but filled with excitement. Hermione hesitated, whispering, "If it's that important, shouldn't we give it to John?" "Please, Hermione, enough about John," Harry snapped, his annoyance with the repeated mention of John's name evident. He reclaimed the diary, asserting, "He's from Slytherin, and we're Gryffindors. Why should we always defer to him?" With that, Harry suggested they investigate the mystery themselves, envisioning the glory of being hailed as Hogwarts' heroes. Hermione's attempt to interject was quickly silenced by Harry's reminder that John could potentially be the heir of Slytherin, leaving her speechless. Despite their efforts, the trio found the diary's pages to be blank. as if it had been a forgotten Christmas gift. Hermione suspected the use of dark magic that rendered conventional spells ineffective in revealing its contents. The following day, Harry aimlessly flipped through the blank diary, his interest in meeting with John waning. Hermione, frustrated by Harry's obsession with the diary, snatched it from him and threw it across the room, where it struck an ink bottle. "I don't understand why you're acting this way," she exclaimed angrily before storming out of the library, leaving Harry torn between chasing after her and rescuing the diary. Once again, Harry was drawn to the diary, but this time he noticed something peculiar. The ink, instead of spreading across the desktop, was being absorbed by the diary itself. Harry's curiosity was piqued, and he quickly opened the diary to witness the ink being drawn into the pages. This phenomenon reminded Harry of something, prompting him to take out his pen and write on a blank page, "My name is Harry Potter." He watched anxiously as, after a brief moment, the ink was absorbed and new words appeared on the page, words he hadn't written. "Hello, Harry Potter. My name is Tom Riddle. How did you come across my diary?" This miraculous interaction widened Harry's eyes in astonishment. After the initial exchange, Harry eagerly wrote back, "Found it in the corner of the trophy room. Fortunately, I used a more permanent method than ink to record my past. Someone has always been trying to find me," the diary responded. "That someone?" Harry's heart raced with the possibility of uncovering a hidden truth. "What do you mean?" he wrote, his hand trembling with excitement. The diary replied, "This diary holds some terrible truths, truths that have been concealed, truths that some wish to remain unseen." Harry took deep breaths, trying to calm his racing heart. His intuition told him he was on the verge of uncovering the truth about the Chamber of Secrets. "Do you know anything about the Chamber of Secrets?" he wrote next. "The Chamber of Secrets? Has it been opened again? That terrible monster. When I was in my 5th year, the chamber was opened, and the monster within attacked several students." Harry, already aware that the monster was a basilisk, quickly wrote back, seeking more information from Riddle. The more he learned, the more alarmed he became. Tom Riddle's knowledge about the Chamber of Secrets and its dangers brought Harry one step closer to the truth. "Do you know who the culprit is?" Harry inquired. "Rubus Hagrid. He is a half-giant, ostracized by the students. In a bid for acceptance, he recklessly unleashed monsters," the diary claimed. This revelation sent a chill down Harry's spine, making him feel as though he had plunged into an icy cavern. He struggled to write, "Is it okay if one isn't of pure blood?" "The heir of Slytherin chooses based on merit, not purity of blood," the diary responded, rounding off the conversation. Harry leaned back, staring blankly at the diary, his mind racing. John Wick, a Muggle-born wizard at the bottom of Slytherin, had sought respect by opening the Chamber of Secrets and using the basilisk to cement his status. "Why did you become like this, John?" Harry murmured sadly, regretting his friend's descent into darkness. A new resolve formed in Harry's mind. He wanted to stop John, to prevent him from straying further down this path, much like Tom Riddle had intended to stop Hagrid. Harry hadn't realized his growing suspicions about Hagrid. In the past, he might have believed Hagrid to be innocent, perhaps having opened the chamber by accident. But now, his perspective had shifted, and he found himself accepting the narrative presented by the diary without question. In the diary, a young Tom Riddle's smile seemed almost triumphant. Holding a diary identical to Harry's, he wrote, "I know the location of the chamber's entrance. Should it open again, I hope you can stop it." Upon learning the chamber's location, Harry's determination solidified. He envisioned himself stopping John, becoming a hero of the school, and receiving Dumbledore's commendation. "I will," he wrote back with unwavering resolve. "Harry, where have you been lately?" John asked after class, blocking Harry's path. Harry, however, quickly excused himself and left. John was puzzled by Harry's recent behavior, having never seen him so preoccupied. He didn't believe Harry was avoiding him intentionally, considering their close friendship. Hermione's footsteps echoed vigorously on the floor as she approached, prompting a question filled with a hint of doubt. "Hermione, have you found Harry?" Chapter 84, Hagrid's Accident and the Diary's Whereabouts. Upon hearing John's inquiry, Hermione hesitantly revealed, "Harry is studying in the library." She had wanted to express her concerns about John to Harry, but feared causing a rift between the two friends. Upon learning Harry's location, John immediately stood up, determined not to let Harry evade him this time. He's missing Parseltongue, so he should be the one to open the door for me, John thought, showing a hint of frustration. Upon arriving at the library, John discovered that Harry was nowhere to be found. Exasperated, he muttered to himself, "This guy is like a mouse, always finding new places to hide." Resorting to the Marauder's map, John quickly realized that Harry had already returned to the Gryffindor dormitory. Does he really prefer staying in now? John wondered, pocketing the map and rubbing his forehead in disbelief at Harry's unusual behavior. As John made his way towards the Slytherin dungeon, he encountered Ernie Macmillan, who was eagerly spreading the latest gossip. "The heir of Slytherin has been found. It's the gamekeeper, Rubus Hagrid." John nearly stumbled over a raised stone brick in shock. "Who did you say?" he asked, seeking confirmation. Ernie, spotting John, replied, "Rubus Hagrid. I just saw Ministry of Magic officials taking him away." The news left everyone at Hogwarts bewildered. The gentle, albeit clumsy, Hagrid was the heir of Slytherin? John hurried outside and managed to catch a glimpse of Hagrid before he was taken away. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, was there in person, accompanied by Lucius Malfoy. Hermione and Ron also rushed to the scene, pleading with Professor Dumbledore. "Professor, there must be some mistake." "I'm sorry, Miss Granger, but we need to take Rubus Hagrid to Azkaban immediately," Fudge responded, his tone somewhat apologetic, as long as his position remained unaffected. Dumbledore's expression was grave, and Hagrid looked utterly dejected. Hermione, increasingly anxious, asked, "Where are you taking him?" "Azkaban, I'm afraid. This has happened before," Fudge replied, checking his watch with a hint of impatience. Lucius Malfoy, smirking with satisfaction, seemed to relish the unfolding events. John, however, reassured Hagrid with a determined look. "Don't worry, I'll find a way to rescue you." Lucius, eyeing John with disdain, sneered, "Rescue? You seem unaware of the dangers of Azkaban, young wizard. You'll only see him in your memories unless you plan to join him." John met Lucius's gaze calmly and retorted, "We'll see about that." His response caused Lucius's smugness to falter. As Lucius departed with the ministry officials, Ron looked to Dumbledore in disbelief. "Professor, what can we do?" "For now, Mr. Weasley, we wait," Dumbledore replied, his eyes lingering on John, intrigued by his confidence. John watched the ministry officials leave, a sneer playing on his lips. "The Ministry of Magic doesn't belong to any one person," he murmured, hinting at a plan. The incident caused a stir at Hogwarts, and even Harry, who had been unusually reclusive, felt compelled to act, murmuring to himself, "I should help." Back in the dormitory, John received some letters from Basil. In a surprising turn of events, Hagrid, initially destined for Azkaban, was instead detained at the Ministry of Magic, a development that infuriated Lucius Malfoy. Lucius had hoped that suspending Dumbledore, with the support of other Hogwarts governors, would resolve the issue. However, he hadn't anticipated interference from Dharma Alex Belby, recently honored as an Order of Merlin, First Class, and Rufus Scrimger from the Auror Office, both of whom advocated for Hagrid's detention. Lucius had grossly underestimated the influence of the insignificant young wizard he had mocked. John's letter had sparked a chain reaction, thwarting Lucius's plans. John reviewed the conditions proposed by Rufus Scrimger: Auror Office 20 sets of amulets and a ring of strike. John and Dharma Alex hadn't known each other for long, and it was rare for someone to offer help without expecting anything in return. The Auror Office had shown a keen interest in the equipment John had previously provided. Being an Auror was fraught with danger, never knowing when a dark wizard might target you with a deadly curse. The amulets, particularly the Humping Willow amulet, proved to be a remarkable solution. Its sensitivity to even the slightest hint of malice made it an invaluable tool for their protection. Dharma Alex is being generous, offering his help for free this time, John mused, feeling a mix of gratitude and obligation. He pondered over how to reciprocate the gesture, eventually deciding to share some of his research. He believed that Dharma Alex might find it intriguing, potentially marking a historic breakthrough. After jotting down his notes, John sealed them in an envelope and entrusted Basil with its delivery. Closing his silver-covered contact list, John let out a sigh of relief. It seemed the Ministry of Magic was still undecided, possibly about Hagrid, which explained their relaxed stance. We need to find the diary and access the Chamber of Secrets as soon as possible, he thought, concerned about the consequences of further delay. John had been trying to keep tabs on Harry using the Marauder's map, but Harry, seemingly in possession of the map himself, managed to evade him every time. Realizing Harry was intentionally avoiding him, though puzzled by the sudden change, John decided to employ a different strategy and turned to Draco Malfoy for assistance. "Draco, it's time to put your skills to the test," John said, catching Malfoy off guard. Despite not catching every word, Malfoy understood the task involved Harry and was eager to participate, especially if it meant embarrassing Potter. However, before they could act on their plan, John was approached by Daphne with unsettling news about Pansy's peculiar behavior, suggesting she might be under a curse due to her interactions with an invisible person. The mention of a diary immediately alarmed John, connecting it to their search for Tom Riddle's diary. Daphne's revelation that Pansy referred to someone named Tom only solidified his suspicions. Wasting no time, John led a group, including Malfoy, Daphne, Goyle, and Crabbe, to confront Pansy. In the lounge, they found her giggling at the sight of the giant squid outside the window. The group quickly took control of the situation, with John instructing Daphne to retrieve the diary from their bedroom. Pansy's reaction to the mention of her diary confirmed John's fears that she was in possession of Voldemort's Horcrux. It was a critical oversight on his part, not realizing the dark artifact was hidden right under their noses. As Daphne hurried to the dormitory to search for the diary, Malfoy confronted Pansy, his feelings of betrayal evident. He had always seen himself as superior, especially to someone like Potter, and the thought of Pansy choosing someone else over him was infuriating. The urgency of the situation was palpable, with the discovery of the diary not just a matter of resolving Pansy's strange behavior, but potentially stopping a greater evil from unfolding within the walls of Hogwarts. "I never expected someone like you." The two families had been close since their childhood, sharing countless moments of camaraderie and friendship. It was a bond they believed unbreakable, yet now it seemed as if an insurmountable wall had been erected between them by Neptune's actions. Malfoy was seething with anger. His only desire at the moment was to confront Tom and make him pay for his betrayal. The turmoil within him was intense, reflecting the inner conflict of a Death Eater's son who was grappling with the legacy of his father's dark past. It was likely that his father, were he aware of his son's current turmoil, would lament the path of vengeance and anger his son had chosen, fearing it would lead only to further destruction and sorrow. Chapter 85, The Imperious Curse. Daphne scanned the area, but to no avail. John's expression turned into a frown as he glanced towards Pansy, who suddenly burst into a maniacal laugh, her face twisted with madness. Her voice dropped to a sinister tone. "John Wick, use all your knowledge. Try it." With unexpected strength, Pansy threw off the two people restraining her, pulled out a bottle from her pocket, and drank its contents. "Petrificus totalis." John acted swiftly, casting the spell. Pansy was struck by the curse, rendering her immobile as she collapsed. However, it was too late. She had already consumed half of the potion. John approached to examine her. Pansy's eyes, wide with fear, were fixed on him. Immobilized, black veins began to emerge on her neck and cheeks, and within those eyes it seemed as though other, darker eyes lurked. "She's under a curse, the Imperious Curse," John realized. Pansy was being controlled, and a sensation all too familiar to him, having been subjected to the Imperious Curse himself in his first year. Malfoy, witnessing such an event for the first time, looked at John, panic-stricken. "What do we do now? Will Pansy die?" "Calm down. We need to get her to the school hospital immediately," John instructed, his tone stern as he calmed Malfoy. He administered an antidote to Pansy with a grave expression. John couldn't think of anyone other than Riddle capable of wielding the Imperious Curse to manipulate Pansy. No, Ginny mentioned she was controlled unintentionally. How could he use the Imperious Curse? The more John pondered, the more he sensed that the situation was spiraling out of control. They rushed Pansy to the school hospital. At the hospital, Madame Pomfrey took over Pansy's emergency treatment. Malfoy, bewildered, was sent outside, where Daphne sat, her head bowed in worry. A cold fury ignited within John. Riddle, this is a declaration of war. Previously, Riddle had not harmed his own, but manipulating Pansy right before his eyes was a direct provocation. I need to find that diary. An idea struck John as Pansy lay in the hospital. Returning to the Slytherin common room, he released Tom, his beagle harrier, and had him sniff Pansy's pillow. Go find the diary, he commanded. Tom set off through Hogwarts, his short legs working diligently, with John following closely. It was a sight Hogwarts had never seen before, a dog leading the search, followed by John. Malfoy was tasked with intercepting Harry, as John was determined not to let Voldemort escape this time. Eventually, their search led them to the trophy room. Tom halted, signaling the diary's presence. The room's interior was largely unchanged, and there, beneath Tom Riddle's medal, lay the diary with its aged cover. Looks like we found you, Riddle, John muttered, picking up the diary, his face stern and cold. In the room of requirement, John opened the diary to find a message waiting. I've been waiting for you a long time, John Wick. The provocations were deliberate. John, on high alert, aimed his wand at the diary, conjuring 2 silver chains. You're caught now, Riddle, he declared coldly. The written words vanished, replaced by another message. Caught? No, no, no. You are mistaken. The diary's tone was unsettlingly calm. I've been waiting for you. You should know me through that Weasley girl. The ease in the diary's response only heightened John's vigilance. He stared down at the diary, which now seemed to emanate a more potent aura. Wick, you've proven yourself to be exceptionally intelligent. Whether it was dealing with the basilisk or finding me, the words in the diary praised. However, you're still a step behind. The Chamber of Secrets has already been opened. John's heart skipped a beat upon reading this. He quickly connected the dots. The Chamber of Secrets requires Parseltongue to open, and you're currently in my possession, he retorted. Who said there's only one Parseltongue? The handwriting in the diary morphed into a sinister red, as if mocking him. Now, see what you can do. The blood-red text sent a chill down John's spine. He suddenly remembered another Parseltongue. Harry. In a swift motion, John cast a binding charm on the diary, entwining it with 2 silver chains to ensure it remained sealed. He dashed out of the room of requirement, speeding towards the 2nd floor. Upon reaching the girls' bathroom, his fears were confirmed. The Chamber of Secrets was open. Damn it! John cursed under his breath. He shouted at the diary, What have you done? It was merely a nudge. The boy is overshadowed by your brilliance and yearns to prove himself a hero. Voldemort's voice dripped with irony. He found it hard to believe that such a savior could ever defeat him. With a grim expression, John cast a supersensory spell on the passage, allowing him to perceive the situation within. As he prepared to descend, Draco Malfoy approached, having missed Harry. John, what's happening? Draco inquired. Without delving into details, John secured the diary once more and handed it to Draco. Find Professor Snape immediately. Make sure no one touches this diary, he instructed before leaping into the dark passage. Draco hesitated, peering into the gloom. I'll find Snape, he decided, rallying his friends Goyle and Crabbe to follow him. John, meanwhile, experienced the sensation of free fall before activating his flying boots to land safely. He found himself at the entrance of another passage. Where did Harry go? He wondered aloud. The door to the Chamber of Secrets stood ajar. Inside, John was greeted by a long, dimly lit chamber supported by stone pillars adorned with serpentine carvings. A green, eerie mist filled the air, casting long, sinister shadows. Harry, where are you? John called out, his voice echoing through the silence. Armed with the Felicity elixir, John felt a surge of clarity and confidence. The chamber housed a towering statue of Salazar Slytherin, its mouth open to reveal a dark passage. Riddle, what's your endgame? John mused, trusting his instincts to guide him through the passage. The walls bore the marks of centuries, leading him to a surprising revelation. The Chamber of Secrets was connected to the Forbidden Forest. This explained how the basilisk could survive undetected for nearly 1,000 years. In the wild expanse of the Forbidden Forest, John pursued a trail marked by crushed bones and debris. It was here he found Harry, who seemed to have regained some of his strength. Nearby, a basilisk, blinded in one eye, slithered menacingly. Despite its injury, the creature was relentless, and Harry, cautious and wary, dared not make a move against it. This cannot go on, John thought, aware of the myriad dangers that lurked in the depths of the forbidden forest. With a swift motion, he drew his wand and cast the shattering curse. A ball of white light surged from his wand, striking the basilisk with force. The creature let out a thunderous roar of agony, and in its convulsions, Harry was thrown aside. Without hesitation, John unsheathed his sword. His eyes transformed, taking on the vertical pupils characteristic of dragons, and he whispered an ancient incantation. "I am a fire dragon." The blade burst into flames, and the boots on his feet sprouted wings, propelling him into the air. He descended like a meteor, driving the flaming sword into the basilisk's remaining eye. As he twisted the blade, flames infiltrated the creature's skull, causing it to thrash in torment. John continued his assault, conjuring chains through transfiguration to bind the basilisk tightly. He pressed his wand directly against the creature's head and unleashed another shattering curse at point-blank range. The impact was devastating, slamming the basilisk's head against the ground. Seizing the moment, John aimed to deliver the final blow, but the basilisk, in a desperate attempt to survive, rolled over, forcing John to withdraw his sword. He leaped back, narrowly escaping the basilisk's reach, and muttered under his breath about the inadequacy of his weapon. "The basilisk's resistance to magic is formidable. I can't defeat it with my current level of magic unless I resort to fiendfire." But the thought of using such dark magic, especially in Harry's presence, made him hesitate. Caught in his dilemma, John's attention was suddenly drawn by a whistling sound. A bright light descended from the sky, landing not far from where he stood. As he approached, the identity of the object took him by surprise. "The Sword of Gryffindor?" he exclaimed, recognizing the legendary blade. Chapter 86. Killing the Basilisk and Daphne's Disappearance. The Sword of Gryffindor lay on the ground, equidistant between John and Harry. Just as John reached for it, the basilisk broke free, its tail sweeping menacingly towards them. With no time to spare, John intensified his transformation spell, causing the surrounding trees to morph into ropes that bound the basilisk. Nearby, a stone transformed into a puppy, playfully biting at the basilisk's tail. "Harry, grab the sword!" John shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Harry, who had been momentarily paralyzed by fear, hesitated. It was Riddle, through the connection of the Horcruxes, who had hinted that a jolt of stimulation could snap him out of it. Yet, Harry lacked confidence, shaking his head vehemently. "I can't do it," he protested, his voice laced with panic. "You can, Harry. You're the chosen one, the son of the prophecy." John's encouragement was cut short as the basilisk's head lunged at him, its fangs inches from his face, embedding themselves into a tree instead. The tree withered instantly, and John narrowly escaped, his heart racing. Harry continued to shake his head, despair evident in his voice. "I can't, John. I'm not like you. I'm not that brave." Frustrated and running out of patience, John dodged another attack from the basilisk. His wand flew from his grasp, forcing him to block the beast's fangs with Ironwick's sword, feeling the deadly brush of its teeth against his skin. In a moment of desperation, John cast a wandless spell, sending Harry flying from his hiding spot behind the tree. "I don't care if you think you can't do it, Harry. Just grab that damn sword now." Spurred by John's command, Harry's resolve hardened. He scrambled to his feet, running towards the Sword of Gryffindor. Grasping the hilt, adorned with a large ruby, a surge of courage flooded through him. With newfound bravery, Harry charged at the basilisk, much to John's astonishment. "No, wait! I didn't mean for you to attack it," John exclaimed, but it was too late. Harry's reckless charge caught the basilisk's attention, giving John a crucial moment to act. He retrieved his wand, channeling all his magical power into a blinding white light that struck the basilisk squarely in the mouth, a vulnerable spot devoid of scales. The beast's head recoiled from the impact, its massive body collapsing to the ground. Still, the basilisk attempted to rise. John, seizing the moment, sprinted forward, driving Ironwick's sword deep into its open jaw. The resistance was fierce, but a well-aimed banishing spell propelled the sword further, pinning the creature to the ground. The basilisk writhed in agony, its body flailing wildly. John narrowly avoided its venomous fangs as he withdrew his arm. "Finish it, Harry," he commanded. Bruised and battered, Harry advanced, his grip on the sword of Gryffindor firm. With a clumsy yet determined swing, he struck the basilisk's head, the blade embedding itself awkwardly. The basilisk roared in pain, a sound Harry, understanding Parseltongue, found bewildering. Seeing Harry struggle, John relinquished Ironwick's sword and took up the sword of Gryffindor. With a swift, decisive motion, he delivered the final blow, silencing the basilisk once and for all. As the dust settled, John and Harry stood amidst the wreckage, their victory bittersweet. Amidst their triumph, they realized Daphne was nowhere to be found, her disappearance casting a shadow over their hard-won success. With a swift and decisive strike, the sword pierced through the basilisk's head, targeting its brain. The once vigorous creature suddenly weakened, and within moments, it lay lifeless. Exhausted and shaken, Harry collapsed onto the ground, declaring it the most terrifying experience of his life. John, who had also played a crucial role in the defeat, looked equally spent. The basilisk had been brought down by their combined efforts, with one sword lodged in its jaw, and the other, the sword of Gryffindor, piercing its brain. As the snake's blood dripped down the gleaming silver blade, John began collecting it in bottles, his actions puzzling Harry. Feeling a wave of guilt, Harry apologized. "I'm sorry, John. This is all my fault." John, however, dismissed his concerns with a wave of his hand. "It's okay, Harry. You were just being manipulated," he reassured, even as he noticed the venom had started to corrode his Ironwick sword, leaving small spots on the blade. In contrast, the sword of Gryffindor remained pristine, a fact that didn't escape John's envious gaze. Upon rolling up his sleeve, John revealed a bloody wound on his arm, causing Harry to panic. "John, you need to get that treated immediately," he exclaimed, aware of the basilisk's deadly poison. John, however, seemed unfazed. "It's just a scratch," he said with a confident smile, certain that Dumbledore would intervene. But as minutes passed without any sign of the headmaster, John's confidence wavered. The realization that Dumbledore was unaware of their predicament and not present at the school hit him hard as the venom's effects intensified. Resigned, John prepared to impart his final words to Harry, who refused to accept the grim situation. Ignoring John's protests, Harry attempted to suck the poison from the wound, a gesture John found both foolish and touching. "Don't be ridiculous, Harry. Even if you drain all my blood, it won't cure the poison. It's better to amputate my hand," John argued, trying to dissuade him. Harry, however, was determined to save his friend and drew the sword of Gryffindor, ready to take drastic action. John, alarmed by Harry's resolve, remembered he had an antidote. Drinking it quickly, he cast a healing spell on his wound, Episki, and watched as it began to mend. Relieved to feel his hand regaining sensation, John reassured Harry, "You can put the sword down now." Together, they approached the basilisk's corpse, now seeing it as a source of valuable materials rather than a threat. John carefully extracted the venomous fangs, storing them away as they prepared to leave the scene. "Let's head back," John said, their harrowing encounter with the basilisk behind them, but with the knowledge that they had emerged victorious through their courage and quick thinking. John and Harry made their way back, both appearing somewhat disheveled, a detail John was indifferent to. After the ordeal, hunger gnawed at him, his stomach growling in protest. Harry, still shaken from his encounter with Riddle's hypnotic influence, shared his experience with John. "You mean you were the one who placed that diary there?" John pondered over Harry's words, trying to decipher Riddle's motives. "He convinced me that you had opened the Chamber of Secrets and claimed he had a method to thwart you, so I—" Harry's voice trailed off, laden with guilt and embarrassment. Upon reflection, he realized the folly of his actions. John was at a loss for words. "You chose to trust the words of a phantom in a diary over mine?" he thought, incredulous. The duo made their way back to the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets, with John navigating through the hidden room inside the statue. He resolved to return if necessary. Emerging from the passage in the girls' bathroom, they were greeted by an impatient Professor Snape. "John Wick, Harry Potter," Snape addressed them, his expression stern. John offered a sheepish smile and attempted to justify their actions. "I had my reasons." "Can you believe that?" Snape's cold gaze seemed to challenge their credibility. After a thorough explanation, which included showing Snape the basilisk fangs, Professor McGonagall arrived. She promptly escorted the boys to the school hospital for a checkup. Harry was merely exhausted and sported a few bruises, but John's condition puzzled Madame Pomfrey. Despite his disheveled appearance, he was unscathed, not a single scratch on him. Had Harry not witnessed John being bitten, he might have assumed John had merely taken a tumble in the mud. Later, in the auditorium, John was determined to confront Malfoy and reclaim the diary. Upon finding Malfoy, he was met with unsettling news. Daphne is missing. The narrative had taken a turn, weaving a complex web of events that tested the characters' resolve and trust in one another. John's and Harry's adventure through the Chamber of Secrets and their subsequent encounter with Snape highlighted the challenges they faced. Yet, it was the revelation of Daphne's disappearance that added a new layer of urgency to their quest, pushing them further into the unknown. Chapter 87: Re-entering the Forbidden Forest and the Encounter with the Invisible Beast. Disappeared? John was taken aback. Where could Daphne have gone? In his mind, apart from her occasional preference for sitting next to him, Daphne Greengrass, the beautiful Slytherin girl, was primarily known for her aloofness. She barely acknowledged anyone, not even Malfoy and his clique, with anything more than a cursory glance. Malfoy, looking guilty, admitted she took off with the diary. "Draco, let's have a chat about your redeeming qualities." John sighed deeply. Malfoy was regretful. The diary had been whispering to him, leading him into temptation. He had nearly succumbed to its influence several times. When he had sought Professor Snape's guidance, the professor had been preoccupied with the recent incidents involving Harry and John. Daphne, noticing something was amiss with Malfoy, had taken the diary from him. Unfortunately, she had proven to be less resilient than Malfoy and had vanished soon after taking it. Malfoy was filled with regret. Had he known the consequences, he would have kept the diary with him. Meanwhile, John, still under the influence of the Felicia potion, pondered over Harry's account of Tom Riddle. How could he possibly deal with me? I've slain the basilisk. There's nothing left in Hogwarts that could pose a threat, he mused. His mind raced, piecing together the puzzle. Recalling Pansy Parkinson's mention of a poison bottle sparked an idea. "Where is Pansy's poison bottle?" he asked urgently. Malfoy, puzzled by the question, took a moment before responding. "Professor Snape confiscated it." Upon hearing this, John rushed to find Professor Snape, realizing that the poison was the final piece of the puzzle. Riddle, aware that the basilisk had been defeated, had resorted to using it as a distraction. While eliminating Harry was a tempting prospect, Riddle's primary objective was resurrection. He's been growing stronger since he took control of Ginny. He must have found a way, John reasoned. Reflecting on the condition of those who had come into contact with the diary, Ginny's weakening state, Pansy's odd behavior, Harry's secret hypnosis, and Malfoy's auditory hallucinations, it was clear that Riddle's influence was expanding. Initially, communication was limited to writing, but it soon escalated to hypnosis and soul possession. This escalation was likely due to the diary absorbing the magical power and life force of its holders, facilitating Riddle's transformation. John surmised that Riddle was seeking another wizard to drain in the trophy room, but his plan was thwarted when John and Tom discovered it. Given John's robust magical power, Riddle had to redirect him, revealing Harry's venture into the Chamber of Secrets. Clever, Voldemort. I underestimated him, John mused. Recalling Voldemort's less-than-stellar schemes from his past life, he had initially thought little of Voldemort's intelligence. However, reflecting on Voldemort's younger years, John acknowledged his cunning and ambition. Upon reaching Snape's office, John found the professor analyzing the poison bottle. "Mr. Wick, I expect better manners from you," Snape remarked with a hint of disdain. John, undeterred, inquired urgently, "Professor, have you identified the contents?" Snape, misinterpreting John's concern, replied condescendingly, "You would do well to study more. The components of a potion are complex and not easily discerned by the untrained eye." He suggested, somewhat dismissively, "If you're truly concerned, you might visit Miss Parkinson in the hospital wing." "That would be too late," John replied, taking an unexpected action that caught Professor Snape off guard. John carefully picked up the vial of poison, giving it a cautious sniff. Before Professor Snape could even begin to mock him, John daringly took a sip. Snape was taken aback. While it was true that the fastest way to discern a poison's ingredients was to taste it, he hadn't expected such a bold move from John. As the various toxins were identified by his keen sense of taste, John felt a slight numbness spread through his body, but his expression eased. "Acromantula venom," he declared. Thanks to his fire dragon physique, John had a high resistance to poisons. The effects were mild, and after pinpointing the main ingredient, he casually consumed the antidote as if it were mere water. Snape's face turned pale with worry and then darkened with anger. 20 points from Slytherin, he snapped. Okay, John replied nonchalantly, hurrying out of the office. On his way, he encountered Harry, who was flanked by Ron and Hermione. Noticing John's brisk pace, Harry instinctively followed him. Hermione, visibly annoyed, stamped her foot, and Ron, intimidated by her frustration, hesitated to follow. "John, where are you headed?" Harry called out, catching up to him. John paused and turned to face Harry. "Daphne's in trouble. I suspect Riddle has taken her to the Forbidden Forest." "Riddle? Who's that?" Harry's confusion made John stop in his tracks. He looked intently at the scar on Harry's forehead and explained, "Riddle is just his surname. His full name is Tom Marvolo Riddle. It's a name that's shaken the wizarding world, though not many recognize it." "What name?" Harry asked, puzzled. John looked deeply at Harry's scar and whispered, "Voldemort." At the mention of Voldemort, Harry froze, a chilling vision flashing before his eyes accompanied by a woman's scream, sending shivers down his spine. "Harry, Riddle is after you. He's planning something for his resurrection, and it's going to be extremely dangerous," John warned, suggesting Harry stay behind. But Harry, determined not to let John face the danger alone, insisted on joining him. "You know the connection between me and Voldemort," he said. Respecting Harry's decision, John nodded. "I respect your choice, Harry." Together, they hurried towards the Forbidden Forest. As they passed Hagrid's hut, John called out for Fang, who eagerly bounded out. John presented Daphne's handkerchief to Fang, instructing, "We need you to find her." Fang barked affirmatively and dashed into the forest, with John and Harry following closely. The forest grew darker, and the path more treacherous, with fallen branches littering the ground. John navigated with ease, but Harry struggled to keep up, relying on his wand for light. Deeper into the forest, Fang suddenly halted and barked towards a specific direction. John signaled for silence, drawing his wand and cautiously approaching. There, they encountered a humanoid ape-like creature with black eyes and long hair, which had just revealed itself from invisibility. An invisible beast? John, familiar with fantastic beasts and where to find them, was surprised. The creature, known for its gentle nature, seemed anxious and pointed them in a certain direction. "Are you guiding us?" John inferred, trusting the creature's intent under the influence of Felicia. With a mutual glance, he and Harry followed the direction indicated. After navigating through a thorny path, they arrived at a serene silver lake, the moonlight casting a mystical glow over the water. Bathed in moonlight, the lake beside them glimmered like a sheet of silver. Standing at its edge was a boy clad in a Hogwarts uniform, his gaze fixed on the figure before him, a girl with striking blonde hair lying at his feet. This boy, with his dark eyes, tall stature, and pale, handsome features, was none other than a young Voldemort, holding Daphne's laurel wand with a confident smile playing on his lips. "You finally arrived," he said, the corners of his mouth curling upwards. In his hand, the wand seemed more a symbol of his arrogance than a tool of magic. He regarded the two before him with a dismissive air. "That old fool of a snake must be dead by now, but no matter. It's time for me to act." His pride was palpable, a testament to his belief in his own superiority. Pointing his wand directly at Harry, Voldemort's youthful incarnation declared, "Draw your wand, Harry. I'm aware you've been taught to duel. I intend to take your life personally." He had learned from Ginny the tale of Harry Potter, the Dark Lord who had been defeated by a mere infant, and he was determined to rectify that humiliation himself. Even John, standing to the side, could only watch as the scene unfolded. Harry, summoning all his courage, reached for his wand and took a determined step forward. A smile spread across Riddle's face, anticipating the duel that was to come. This moment was more than a confrontation, it was a clash of destinies. Harry, aware of the weight of history on his shoulders, faced Voldemort not just as an opponent, but as a symbol of the darkness that had once engulfed the wizarding world. The air was charged with tension, the outcome of this encounter poised to echo through the annals of magical history. Chapter 88, The Valor of Woody and Riddle's Downfall. "What's wrong with her?" Harry asked, his gaze fixed on Daphne. She lay motionless, her once rosy complexion now pallid, and her lips, which were usually a vibrant cherry, had turned an alarming shade of white. He couldn't fathom why the heir of Slytherin would target a pureblood. "For me, eliminating mudbloods is no longer a priority. My true aim has always been resurrection," Riddle explained softly, a hint of amusement in his voice as he observed Harry's shocked expression. He sneered. "You see, she's just like Ginny, a foolish little girl blinded by love. Such absurd affection. John Wick, she's infatuated with you. Blinded by her feelings, she followed me willingly because I lied that you were in the Forbidden Forest." Hearing Riddle's words, John's expression shifted from calm to furious. "Ever since you unleashed the basilisk, I've stood in your way. You expected the school to be engulfed in fear, but because of me, everyone found their courage again. John, it wasn't supposed to be this way. You've ruined everything. My basilisk, my plans." Riddle's tone darkened with each word. He had meticulously planned to use the basilisk to murder Muggleborns, plunging the school into chaos. But John, single-handedly, thwarted his plans. Despite this setback, Riddle had managed to resurrect himself. Pointing at the unconscious Daphne, he chuckled. "Her death will complete my resurrection, but before that, I'll kill you." He confidently pointed his wand at them, believing that even together, they posed no threat to him. After all, he was Tom Riddle, Hogwarts' top student and the future Dark Lord. "Harry, don't hesitate. Come out and face me. I'm eager to watch you die a painful death," Riddle taunted, angering Harry. Even facing defeat, Harry knew he had to confront him. "Let's do this, Riddle," Harry declared, gripping his wand firmly. Riddle responded with a calm and graceful salute. "One should always salute before a duel. Didn't your teacher teach you that?" Refusing to be outdone, Harry mimicked Riddle's gesture and saluted. As they both lowered their heads, a sudden sound shattered the silence. Boom! Startled, Harry looked up to see astonishment on Riddle's face, a bullet hole in his chest from which black smoke billowed. John stood there, expressionless, with white smoke curling from the pistol in his hand. Seeing Harry's puzzled look, John remarked indifferently, "There's no honor in dealing with scum like him." He couldn't understand Harry's thought process. With a 2-on-1 advantage, why would Harry choose a fair duel? John's wand flickered, sending streaks of white light towards Riddle. Riddle attempted to counter with the iron armor curse, but it shattered under the force of John's shattering curse in less than a second. "How is this possible?" Riddle exclaimed, disbelief in his eyes. He couldn't fathom how a second-year wizard could surpass him in skill. Unbeknownst to him, John was no ordinary second-year student. Despite his youthful appearance, his strategic mind and magical prowess were unmatched. Forced to retreat by John's relentless assault, Riddle found himself backed into a corner. As John advanced, he continued to unleash a barrage of spells, interspersed with the occasional gunshot. All 14 bullets were a gift for Riddle to enjoy. Cornered, Riddle shouted defiantly, "John Wick, do you dare face me in a duel?" "A duel? You've taken hostages, and yet you have the audacity to challenge me?" John scoffed, dismissing Riddle's proposal. It was ludicrous, akin to kidnappers demanding a fair fight from the police. Such tactics might deceive a child like Harry, but to John, they were mere child's play. As Riddle was driven step by step towards the lake behind him, John raised his hand, ready to deliver the final blow. Harry learned a valuable lesson from John during their confrontation with Riddle. Never attempt to reason with Death Eaters. As the battle intensified, Harry and John, positioned on opposite sides, managed to push Riddle back with a relentless assault. Riddle's fury was palpable as he launched a flying, shattering curse at Harry, sending him flying. Despite the pressure, John, leveraging his combat experience, managed to counter Riddle's attacks with precision. The air was charged with the colors of their spells, green, white, and red lights weaving through the chaos. A stray spell nearly hit Daphne, causing stone debris to scatter dangerously close to her. Seizing a momentary advantage, John cast a level 4 flame curse, creating a fiery barrier between them and Riddle, and urged Harry to get Daphne to safety. As Riddle attempted to breach the barrier with a Cruciatus curse, John and he exchanged powerful spells, their magic clashing with the intensity of a storm. John, fueled by a potion that enhanced his strength, taunted Riddle, suggesting he was fortunate they hadn't been contemporaries at school. The duel reached a climax as John, with unexpected assistance, landed a decisive blow on Riddle. Riddle's body, unable to withstand the onslaught, disintegrated into black smoke. In the aftermath, Harry and John noticed the diary, a source of dark power, attempting to escape. Harry, stumbling upon the Sword of Gryffindor by chance, used it to destroy the diary, effectively neutralizing the threat. John, impressed by Harry's quick thinking and bravery, offered him a chance to learn swordsmanship, acknowledging his skill in combat. The battle, though harrowing, demonstrated the importance of teamwork, quick thinking, and the unexpected ways in which help can appear. "Me?" Harry asked, a hint of hesitation in his voice. No need. I still think the wand is easier to use." The mere thought of Neville's unfortunate mishap made Harry shudder. John couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity. To him, it was clear that this device was far more straightforward to use than a magic wand. After ensuring the diary, now with a hole punctured through it, was securely placed in his small bag, he walked over to Daphne to assess her condition. The destruction of the diary had evidently brought color back to Daphne's cheeks. "She'll probably need some time to rest," John mused, observing her peaceful face. A thought crossed his mind, making him ponder the logistics of their situation. "Carrying someone on my back would be quite exhausting," he realized, stroking his chin thoughtfully. His gaze shifted to Harry, considering the possibility of enlisting some help. Harry, feeling an inexplicable chill, couldn't shake off the feeling that he might need an extra blanket to ward off the cold tonight. Chapter 89, The Spider's Nest and the Fiendfire. Harry, with a look of dismay, turned to Daphne, while John expressed his gratitude to the mysterious creature that had aided them. "Thank you for your help," he said. If not for the creature's timely intervention, John doubted he would have emerged victorious so easily. It seemed this creature, with its prominent eyebrows and large eyes, had a penchant for surprise attacks. As John extended his hand in a gesture of thanks, unsure if the creature understood the meaning, its eyes shimmered with colorful lights before it suddenly let out an anxious scream. Puzzled by the creature's reaction, John's confusion was quickly replaced by alarm as rustling sounds surrounded them. "Why does this sound so familiar?" he wondered aloud. Looking towards the source of the noise, he was met with the sight of a spider, as large as a small car, fixating its gaze upon them. "Run!" was John's immediate decision. The dog, Yaya, had vanished, likely having sensed the danger ahead. Harry, upon seeing the enormous spiders, wished fervently for the ability to sprout additional legs to aid his escape. The two dashed through the forbidden forest, only to stumble upon a spider's nest. "I can't believe this," John muttered under his breath, realizing they had inadvertently run into the very heart of danger. It wasn't Voldemort's machinations they needed to fear at this moment, but rather the spiders lying in wait. As the Acromantilla's 8 eyes gleamed with avarice, it issued a piercing shriek and launched an attack. "Harry, fight!" John commanded, as he conjured a blast of white light from his wand, striking the nearest spider and causing it to burst open. He was no stranger to these creatures. With Harry struggling to retaliate, John noticed another spider about to pounce on him and swiftly intervened, sending the spider flying with a well-aimed spell. However, their situation grew dire as more spiders swarmed them. John, wielding a sword in one hand and his wand in the other, fought valiantly, but the numbers were overwhelming. Harry, exhausted and drained of magical power, could barely stand. "What do we do?" John pondered, desperate for a solution as the spiders continued their relentless assault. Suddenly, a peculiar noise cut through the chaos. "D!" Both Harry and John turned towards the sound, initially mistaking the source for glowing eyes. It was, in fact, the headlights of a car. "Harry!" Ron's voice emerged from the vehicle, with Hermione's familiar face visible beside him. The Weasley family's enchanted car plowed through the spiders, with Yaya barking excitedly from within. "Hermione, Ron?" Harry exclaimed, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude as his friends came to their rescue. He quickly boarded the car, urging John to follow. Surrounded, John's gaze hardened as he stared at the nest teeming with spiders. Recalling a previous encounter where he narrowly escaped being devoured, his patience had reached its limit. Climbing onto the car's roof at Harry's insistence, he prepared for one final stand. Taking a deep breath, John traced a large circle with his wand, his eyes narrowing into slits as rage consumed him. "Fiend fire," he whispered, unleashing a torrent of red flames. The spell transformed into a colossal dragon, its fiery breath incinerating the approaching spiders. The fiend-fire dragon rampaged through the nest, leaving nothing but ash in its wake, a testament to John's wrath and determination to protect his friends. The red dragon transformed into a sea of flames. John felt his magical power rapidly depleting as he manipulated the fiend-fire, parting a path through the inferno with both hands. The air was filled with the screams and howls of spiders, causing the three younger students to freeze in terror. Yaya, shivering, curled up in the back seat, while the invisible beast had somehow found its way into the car. "Run!" Ron shouted, slamming his foot on the accelerator. The car burst out of the sea of flames as John, using the last of his magical power, D the dragon of fire into the heart of the spider's lair. "If you want to eat me, then face extinction," John declared, his face twisted in anger. The spider's nest became a blazing inferno, countless spiders perishing in the flames, including the old Aragog, who watched in horror as its indulgence nearly led to the extinction of its offspring. The webs within the lair served as perfect fuel, allowing the fire dragon to rage for 2 hours before it finally subsided. Thick smoke rose into the sky, forming dark clouds from which rain fell, marking the near annihilation of the Aragog tribe. The Weasley family's enchanted car sped to the edge of the forbidden forest. John leaped off the roof, his mood significantly calmer. "It seems I shouldn't overindulge in Felix Felicis," he mused, reflecting on his recent recklessness. He recalled the potion's side effects, including potential poisoning and a tendency to make one arrogant and reckless. He had never before used fiendfire, wary of its black magic origins and its instability. Controlling fiendfire was a daunting task, requiring a level of magical power significantly higher than the flames themselves. John was satisfied with his cleansing of the spider's nest, though he wondered if Hagrid would mourn the loss upon his return. The three younger students exited the car, and John carefully carried Daphne out. The magic car, seemingly with a mind of its own, slammed its doors shut and sped back into the forbidden forest. "Has this car gone wild?" John pondered, puzzled by the car's behavior. Hermione approached, visibly furious, and berated John and Harry. "How could you be so reckless? You've broken at least 50 school rules." Her anger was palpable, and she didn't care for their excuses, scolding them as if they were misbehaving children. Ron, intimidated, remained silent throughout the ordeal, a testament to his place in the family hierarchy. Harry nudged John, suggesting he try to appease Hermione. After a moment's thought, John explained, "It's not Harry's fault. Riddle took Daphne away, and I was a bit out of sorts." Hermione's anger began to subside as she noticed Daphne, a beautiful girl who was often seen with John. Ron, curious, asked, "Who's Riddle?" "Oh, that's Voldemort," John replied nonchalantly, with Harry quickly nodding in agreement. The mere mention of Voldemort's name brought a chill to the air, causing Ron to shudder and protest. "Don't say that name." Hermione, too, was frightened by the realization of how close Harry and John had come to a deadly fate. Despite her initial anger, she understood the gravity of their situation. With Daphne still unconscious, the group made their way back to the castle, their absence having caused quite a stir at Hogwarts. They were first met by Professor McGonagall, who was visibly relieved to see them safe. She led them to the headmaster's office, where Professor Snape was also present. John felt a twinge of guilt, his recent recklessness fueled by an overdose of Felix Felicis. He had even dared to snatch a potion from Professor Snape's hands without concern for the consequences. Now, as the effects of the potion wore off, John braced himself for the possibility of detention, yet he couldn't help but feel that fate might still have something favorable in store for him. Dumbledore had been suspended from his duties, but he was the first to return to Hogwarts after the recent incident. In his office, the atmosphere was tense among the 5 individuals present. 1 was unconscious, 2 appeared disheveled, and 2 could barely muster the courage to lift their heads. Among them was a couple, Daphne Greengrass's parents, who had rushed to ensure their daughter's safety. Upon seeing Daphne unharmed, her mother, a woman of striking beauty, momentarily set aside the fact that John was a muggle. "The Greengrass family will never forget your kindness," Daphne's father declared solemnly, his expression conveying a depth of gratitude, as if John had saved something precious of his own. The Greengrass family was not the only one expressing their gratitude. Mrs. Weasley, too, embraced Harry with overwhelming joy. Ginny had confessed everything to Dumbledore, prompting him to invite the Weasleys. Mrs. Weasley's embrace extended to John as well, filled with relief and gratitude. Without the courageous actions of these two boys, Ginny might have faced severe charges for the death of a classmate. John laid out the diary, the sword of Gryffindor, and the basilisk fangs, irrefutable evidence of their adventure. With Harry's concise 10-minute explanation, it was clear that Ginny was innocent. "Well done, Harry, John," Dumbledore praised without reservation. Despite the fact that their actions had broken numerous school rules, Dumbledore knew that such concerns were trivial in the grand scheme of things, especially to Gryffindors and Slytherins alike. The Golden Special Contribution Award was bestowed upon several students, catching Ron completely off guard with happiness. He had not anticipated receiving such an honor, especially since Hermione had been quite upset with him moments earlier. "Ron Weasley, for your courageous venture into the Forbidden Forest to rescue your classmates, you truly deserve this," Dumbledore commended, turning his attention to a visibly anxious Hermione. "And Miss Hermione Granger, for your wisdom and bravery in alerting the professors immediately and protecting your friends, you are equally deserving." Dumbledore's words were a testament to the valor and quick thinking of the students involved, highlighting the importance of unity and courage in the face of danger. Chapter 90, Dreadful Malfoy and Free Dobby. Harry stood before Dumbledore, who glanced at the sword of Gryffindor that Harry had brought back. With a smile, Dumbledore remarked, "It seems fitting for a Gryffindor to wield such a weapon in bravery." Then it was John's turn. Feeling a bit guilty, John couldn't help but notice Professor Snape's scowl. Snape was visibly frustrated, having witnessed a student daring to drink poison. Smart, brave, strong, and trusting in your peers, never abandoning a fellow student, Dumbledore praised. "Mr. John Wick, your willingness to take risks for your companions is commendable." John, somewhat taken aback, asked cautiously, "Professor, don't you think it lacked a bit of wisdom on my part?" Dumbledore paused, his expression turning stern. "You risked your life by testing the poison, and yet you seek praise for wisdom?" He chose to move past the comment, quickly briefing everyone on Tom Riddle's true identity, which alarmed the parents present. Turning to Professor McGonagall, Dumbledore suggested, "Minerva, I believe these events call for a celebration. Could you please arrange a banquet?" Understanding Dumbledore's intention to speak privately with the young wizards, McGonagall agreed and left with several parents and Daphne. Dumbledore then addressed Snape. "Severus, we have a cat in need of your expertise, don't we?" Snape, though displeased, had no choice but to comply, especially since Professor Sprout's mandrake potion was ready. John felt a wave of dizziness, realizing he might have become Snape's least favorite student. Despite this, the pressure didn't ease as Dumbledore's gaze lingered on them. "You have all earned the Special Contribution Award. Harry and Ron, your actions speak louder than words," Dumbledore said, offering a reassuring wink to the two boys worried about expulsion. "Each of you has earned 200 points for Gryffindor, and John, you've also earned 200 points for Slytherin," Dumbledore continued. John was astounded. His contribution had inadvertently helped Gryffindor surpass Slytherin in the House Cup race. Hermione, ever the voice of reason, expressed concern. "Professor, isn't this a bit excessive? We didn't do it for the points." Dumbledore's smile widened. "Your humility is worth 200 points in itself." John felt a mix of amusement and disbelief. Dumbledore's methods were unorthodox, but effective. Lockhart, meanwhile, was absent from the scene, busy with his own troubles, thanks to John's intervention. Harry, seizing the moment, voiced a concern that had been troubling him. "Professor Dumbledore, Riddle mentioned in his diary that I resemble him." Dumbledore's gaze softened. "And what do you think, Harry?" "I'm nothing like him," Harry responded passionately. I'm a Gryffindor, but to— He paused, recalling his conversation with the Sorting Hat about his potential in Slytherin and his ability to speak Parseltongue, which had led some to suspect him as the heir of Slytherin. Dumbledore listened intently, ready to offer guidance to Harry, who was grappling with his identity and the shadows of his past. Dumbledore addressed Harry with a calm demeanor. Harry, you can speak Parseltongue because Voldemort, who is the last heir of Slytherin and can also speak it, inadvertently transferred some of his magical powers to you. Harry was taken aback by this revelation, his confidence faltering as he considered, So, I should belong to Slytherin. The Sorting Hat might have seen Slytherin's traits in me. Dumbledore responded with patience. Yet, it chose Gryffindor for you. Harry, you possess qualities that Salazar Slytherin valued: Parseltongue, resourcefulness, a strong will, and a certain disregard for rules. However, it's your choices that define you, not your abilities. As Dumbledore spoke, John noticed everyone's gaze shifting towards him. Harry recalled John's direct confrontation with Riddle, highlighting his resourcefulness. Ron brought up an instance from their first year, showcasing John's strong will. Hermione, with a raised eyebrow and a hint of a smile, mentioned his disregard for rules. John, feeling misunderstood and slightly indignant, protested. What's wrong with having Slytherin traits? Merlin himself was a Slytherin, and he wielded both a wand and a sword. Your stares won't change who I am. Dumbledore, with a hint of amusement, reflected on John's bravery, especially his willingness to face danger head-on. To reinforce Harry's Gryffindor identity, Dumbledore showcased the Sword of Gryffindor, stating, "Only a true Gryffindor can summon it." Harry, however, hesitated, suggesting that John might have been the one to summon the sword, which left Dumbledore pondering the situation. Despite the uncertainty, Dumbledore reassured them, "Let's consider you both true Gryffindors." John, attempting to comfort Harry, inadvertently added to the confusion. Dumbledore, with no clear answer, encouraged John to continue protecting the school, albeit with a cautious hope that he wouldn't cause too much trouble. As they prepared to leave, Lucius Malfoy barged in, nearly colliding with John. The confrontation between Lucius and Dumbledore was tense, with John choosing not to linger. Outside, John observed the unity among the Gryffindor students and couldn't help but comment on their penchant for gossip. After a brief encounter with a disgruntled Lucius, John turned to Harry with a mischievous suggestion. Harry, I think you have the chance to free a soul. Harry, puzzled at first, followed John's gaze to Dobby, who was still in Lucius's company, and immediately grasped the opportunity to make a difference. Harry had nearly forgotten about Dobby amidst the excitement with Ron and Hermione. He rushed to borrow the diary from Dumbledore, and just as he was about to remove his worn and sweaty socks, John intervened. Perhaps Dobby would appreciate something less pungent, he suggested, conjuring a fresh sock with a flick of his wand and handing it to Harry. With a knowing smile, Harry slipped the sock into the diary and hurried off to find Lucius Malfoy. Upon presenting the diary to Lucius, Harry watched as the man's face twisted in anger upon discovering the sock. In a fit of disdain, Lucius discarded the sock and tossed the diary back to Harry, eager to sever any connection to the object. Dobby, seizing the sock with a gleam of liberation in his eyes, held it triumphantly above his head. Freed from his enslavement, Dobby's joy was palpable, contrasting sharply with Lucius's fury at losing his house elf and the disgrace of being stripped of his directorial position. Lucius, overwhelmed by his emotions, stormed off, leaving a lasting impression on John, who watched him go with a thoughtful expression, absently caressing his wand. Lucius Malfoy, he murmured, his gaze intense with contemplation. Upon their return to the Great Hall, John was greeted by the sight of students in pajamas, struggling to keep their eyes open. The decision to hold a banquet in the middle of the night baffled him, leaving him to wonder at Dumbledore's unconventional wisdom. The atmosphere, however, was undeniably charged with a sense of victory and relief, marking the end of another extraordinary chapter at Hogwarts. Chapter 91. Who is Johnny Silverhand and the Mystery of the Slytherin Chamber? The climax of the banquet began with Professor McGonagall's unexpected announcement, the cancellation of this year's final exams. The atmosphere was electric with excitement, but the mood shifted to one of warm welcome when Hagrid returned from the Ministry of Magic around 3:30. Harry, overjoyed to see him, rushed over to give him a firm hug. "I'm not quite sure what happened. The head of the Auror office was surprisingly kind to me," Hagrid confessed, looking genuinely puzzled. Despite Lucius Malfoy's efforts to have him sent to Azkaban, the Auror office had not only refused to comply, but had treated Hagrid with unexpected hospitality, making his stay more akin to a vacation than confinement. "Rufus Scrimgeour even asked me to pass on his regards to Lord Johnny Silverhand, whoever that is," Hagrid added, causing Harry to perk up with curiosity. "Johnny Silverhand? Who's that?" Harry inquired. Taking a sip of his beer, Hagrid's face lit up with a nostalgic smile. "He's the proprietor of the Silver Hand store in Nocturne Alley. You wouldn't believe how popular his items are among the Aurors," he explained. Hagrid, a frequent visitor to Nocturne Alley for collecting materials, had come across the store, which offered items a cut above the rest in the alley. Even Mundungus Fletcher, known for his greed, worked there, always looking for an opportunity to lighten the pockets of the unwary. It seems Johnny Silverhand donated a batch of striker equipment to the Auror office. Perhaps there was a mix-up, and they thought I knew him personally, Hagrid mused, taking advantage of the misunderstanding to enjoy a few more glasses of beer, courtesy of a refill spell. Harry stored the name Johnny Silverhand in his memory, sensing the importance. He shared this new information with Ron, who was busy devouring a chicken leg in each hand. "Johnny Silverhand? Yeah, my dad mentioned him. Said he turned in a bunch of dark arts items to the Ministry, earning him a lot of respect," Ron managed to say between bites. Indeed, Johnny Silverhand had made a strategic move by surrendering half of the dark magic items from Borgin and Burke's, thereby gaining the Ministry's favor. Even Cornelius Fudge had remarked that if more individuals in Nocturne Alley were as conscientious, there might well be 2 Diagon Alleys. Despite never having seen him, the Ministry held Johnny Silverhand in high regard, a fact that intrigued Harry and his friends. However, Hermione, ever the voice of caution, reminded them of the dangers of Nocturne Alley, referencing Harry's near miss with the old witch at the start of their first year. "Please, Hermione, let's not revisit that," Harry pleaded, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment as even Ron couldn't help but laugh. "Both Hagrid and Mrs. Weasley warned us about the dangers of that place. Johnny Silverhand, being in Nocturne Alley, might well be a dark wizard," Hermione continued, her concern evident. Meanwhile, John, feeling a sudden sneeze, wondered if someone was talking about him. As April arrived, the mandrakes matured, leading to an unexpected task for Professor Snape, brewing a potion for Mrs. Norris, Filch's beloved cat. With the antidote administered, Mrs. Norris was soon back to her usual self, much to Filch's relief. In preparation for Easter, Professor McGonagall introduced the third-year students to their elective courses: arithmancy, ancient runes, divination, Muggle studies, and care of magical creatures. John, reviewing the ops, felt drawn to ancient runes for its essential knowledge and Muggle studies, given his past life as a Muggle and his understanding of Muggle society. John, always one step ahead, found himself intrigued by the prospect of protecting magical creatures. His interest was piqued further by the connection between these creatures and various alchemical sites. He delved into the study of arithmancy, a complex field that explores the magical properties of numbers, requiring an extensive memory or the use of intricate diagrams for mastery. In contrast, divination offered a variety of methods such as tea leaf reading, fire omens, crystal gazing, palmistry, tarot cards, astrology, and dream interpretation, relying more on innate talent than rigorous study. Professor McGonagall had once remarked on the subject's lack of precision, but John found himself captivated by all the classes offered and decided to enroll in them all, confident in his ability to excel in the exams despite any scheduling conflicts. As Easter approached, John dedicated himself to accumulating points for Slytherin, outpacing his peers with an unmatched fervor, especially in defense against the dark arts. His exceptional performance earned him nearly automatic points from Professor Lockhart. This competitive spirit not only caught Gryffindor off guard, forcing them into a relentless pursuit of points, but also spurred on the other houses. Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, not wanting to be left behind, joined the fray, much to the astonishment of the faculty. This unexpected surge in diligence led Dumbledore to contemplate the future of final exams at Hogwarts. John's relentless pursuit of points and his habit of outshining Hermione in class caused some tension between them. Meanwhile, Daphne, whose secret had been uncovered by John, found herself avoiding him, torn between frustration and a sense of relief that he was too preoccupied with earning points to confront her about it. In his exploration of the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets, John discovered a hidden entrance to the Forbidden Forest, bypassing the need for Harry's assistance. Inside the chamber, he found a room that seemed to have been preserved by magic, housing a collection of terrifying magical creatures preserved in liquid. The second floor served as an office, adorned with a golden candlestick and silverware engraved with spells, alongside a mysterious long box that had been left behind from the Slytherin era. The third floor resembled a restricted area where John discovered a book on dark magic that particularly caught his interest, especially a section on blood curses. With a curious glint in his eye, he closed the book, pondering the secrets it held. The lack of an inheritance test in the Chamber of Secrets left him undeterred, his mind already racing with the possibilities of what he could learn from the ancient texts. The heir of Slytherin, Voldemort, was not known for his generosity. It was speculated that the only reason he hadn't taken the valuable books from the Chamber of Secrets was due to their inconvenient size for transport. This oversight proved to be a boon for John. Throughout the term, he frequented the Chamber of Secrets, his knowledge expanding rapidly. This newfound wisdom, however, slowed his performance in class, much to the relief of his classmates who had struggled to keep up with his exceptional academic prowess. Despite this, John's contributions to Slytherin's house points continued unabated. By the time May arrived, Gryffindor House watched in dismay as Slytherin's points soared, closing the gap. The Slytherins, including Malfoy, who had recently seen his father, Lucius, removed from his position of influence, rejoiced, their spirits lifted by their house's resurgence. It was clear to all that Slytherin's turnaround was due to John's efforts. Amidst the celebration, John remained focused. "We haven't secured our victory yet. We cannot afford to become complacent," he cautioned, his words cutting through the excitement. His reminder was a sobering one, acknowledging the unpredictable nature of the house point system and the possibility of Gryffindor making a last-minute comeback. His warning had the intended effect. The jubilant atmosphere among the Slytherins shifted to one of determination. They rallied together, united by a common goal, their spirits kindled with a newfound zeal. Slytherin House had transformed into a tightly knit community, their unity unshakable and their resolve stronger than ever. Chapter 92. Sad Hagrid and the Quest for the Invisible Beast. In the cozy confines of Hagrid's hut, the gentle giant wept openly, mourning the loss of his beloved spider friends. Hagrid had been preoccupied with his vegetable garden and only discovered the tragedy upon visiting the Forbidden Forest, where he found the ground littered with the charred remains of spiders. Aragog, his oldest spider friend, had narrowly survived, but was severely weakened by the smoke. The trio, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, did their best to console Hagrid, who was struggling to understand who could have committed such a cruel act. "I don't know who did it. It's just too cruel," Hagrid lamented, blowing his nose loudly. Harry awkwardly suggested, "Maybe it was an accident? The Forbidden Forest is full of dangers, after all." Hagrid seemed to consider this, but he was puzzled by the use of fire, something not commonly wielded by the forest's usual inhabitants, save for centaurs and werewolves. Unbeknownst to Hagrid, the trio harbored a guilty secret about the incident. The conversation shifted as they sought to distract Hagrid from his grief. His hut had always been a sanctuary for them, a place where they could escape the pressures of their studies and the complexities of their adventures. Their moment of peace was interrupted by the sound of barking outside. Fang, Hagrid's loyal dog, perked up at the sound. "It's Tom. He's come to play with Fang," Hagrid explained with a small smile. Tom, the dominant figure in their canine hierarchy, had arrived with John, who had decided to visit Hagrid. John expressed his condolences to Hagrid, offering bread and baguettes as a gesture of sympathy. Despite the simplicity of the gift, Hagrid appreciated the thoughtfulness. The atmosphere became slightly tense when Ron saw John, reacting nervously to his presence. Hermione, ever the academic rival, inquired about John's elective courses, to which he replied with a laugh that he had chosen all of them, much to the horror of Harry and Ron. The conversation about schoolwork and John's surprising choice of electives lightened the mood, even as it bewildered them. Invited to stay for tea, John sampled one of Hagrid's infamous rock cakes, discovering his bite had grown stronger, a fact he found amusing despite the cake's hardness. The topic then shifted to a more serious matter when Harry, curious and concerned, asked John about the gun he had seen him with. The presence of such a Muggle weapon at Hogwarts was shocking to them, especially Hermione, who couldn't hide her surprise and disapproval. John explained that while guns might seem dangerous, they were less so for wizards, who had magical means to heal from injuries that would be fatal to Muggles. He casually mentioned his own experiences, hinting at a test he had conducted, which only added to the trio's curiosity and concern. As the conversation continued, the friends navigated the complexities of their world, where magic and Muggle inventions intersected in unexpected ways. Despite the heavy topics, Hagrid's hut remained a place of comfort and camaraderie, a haven from the outside world where they could confront their fears and find solace in each other's company. John had been shot at least 3 times, yet he remained unscathed. He attributed this resilience to the unique constitution of wizards, but he was quick to point out that this did not place wizards above Muggles. In fact, he argued that if Muggles ever decided to target wizards, despite needing time and caution to counteract the wizards' ability to apparate, they could pose a significant threat due to their sheer numbers and the lethality of their weapons. Harry and Hermione were somewhat reluctant to accept this perspective, while Ron, still puzzled, inquired about what a gun was. Amidst their conversation, the 2 dogs playing outside started barking loudly. John stepped outside to investigate the commotion. To his surprise, the fence seemed to have sprouted eyes. It was an invisible beast, its gaze filled with an almost human-like joy upon seeing John. As Tom continued to bark, John calmed him down and addressed the creature. "Are you looking for me?" The invisible beast had clearly sought John out for a reason, and it gestured towards the forbidden forest, indicating that it wanted him to follow. "Go, John. The invisible beast is a gentle creature. It won't harm you," Hagrid encouraged, his eyes wide with excitement at the sight of the rare beast. He would have loved to engage in a lengthy conversation with it if he wasn't worried about frightening it away. Understanding the creature's intent, John nodded thoughtfully at Harry and the others. "I'll go with it," he announced, entrusting Hermione with the care of Tom before following the invisible beast into the forest. Together, they ventured deep into the forbidden forest, eventually arriving at a large tree adorned with several bowtruckles and a bird's nest. The invisible beast's excitement was palpable as it jumped up and down, clearly indicating the nest to John. Floating up to the nest, John was greeted by the vigilant bowtruckles, but he signaled his peaceful intentions. Inside the nest, he discovered broken silver eggshells. "Is this silver?" John mused, picking up a piece of the shell. A thought struck him. Bird and snake? Carefully removing the rest of the shell, he uncovered a winged bird snake, a magical creature capable of changing size according to its surroundings. The creature was newly hatched, its eyes yet to open. John realized the urgency of the invisible beast and the bowtruckles. The bird snake appeared to be in distress. "I recall Professor Sylvanus Kettleburn mentioning some jays. This might be their offspring," he pondered aloud. Gently lifting the bird snake, John noticed the invisible beast approaching, gesturing first at the creature and then at John, imploring him to take care of it. John reassured the beast, "I know just the person for this. Trust me, he's the best at caring for magical creatures." Though the invisible beast seemed skeptical, John promised to find a suitable caretaker. As he prepared to leave the forbidden forest, he couldn't help but glance back at the creature. He knew that come the end of the semester, he would require the blood of a magical creature to enhance his magical powers. While he already possessed basilisk blood, the encounter with the invisible beast had sparked a new idea. Could the blood of an invisible beast strengthen my illusion spells? John pondered, dismissing the notion of repaying the beast's kindness with betrayal. Instead, he opted for a fair trade. Upon exiting the Forbidden Forest, John now possessed some of the invisible beast's blood. He sought out Hagrid and presented the newborn bird snake to him. Hagrid's excitement was palpable. He embraced John so tightly that John feared his bones might break. With Hagrid's expertise in magizoology, John felt confident that the bird snake was in the best possible hands. The trio of friends gathered around, eager to catch a glimpse of the magical creature, their curiosity and wonder evident in their eyes. After leaving Hagrid's cabin, John made his way to the Room of Requirement. He sensed that his alchemy skills were on the cusp of advancing to level 4. With plenty of time at his disposal, he was determined to achieve this milestone in one fell swoop. Meanwhile, the Slytherin students were buzzing with energy, their competitive spirit evident even in Quidditch matches. Draco Malfoy, in particular, was eager to prove himself. He wanted to demonstrate that his abilities extended beyond the influence of his father's name. However, Harry Potter, a natural seeker, consistently outshone him. In a fit of frustration, Malfoy recklessly abandoned his Nimbus 2001 broomstick on the field after a particularly disappointing match. As time marched on, the semester drew to a close. Slytherin managed to defend their winning streak, edging out Gryffindor by less than 10 points. It was a narrow victory that left the Gryffindor team lamenting what could have been. The tension that had eloped Slytherin for 2 months finally dissipated, replaced by a collective sigh of relief. Amidst their celebrations, they chanted John Wick's name, acknowledging his contributions to their success. The atmosphere in Slytherin was one of triumph, but it was also a testament to the fierce rivalry and camaraderie that defined the Hogwarts experience. As John continued to hone his alchemy skills, he couldn't help but feel a part of something larger than himself, a community where ambition, rivalry, and friendship intertwined in the most unexpected ways. Chapter 93. The Second Magical Triumph and a Lesson in Tooth Decay. Before departing from the station, Hagrid made repeated promises to take excellent care of the little creature entrusted to him. His fondness for magical beasts was evident and heartwarming. Ron, in a rush of urgency, dashed onto the train. He was anxious because John had borrowed his pet rat, Scabbers, for an experiment that, alarmingly, had sterilization as its most significant side effect. Terrified, Scabbers sought refuge in Ron's pocket, refusing to emerge, which left John feeling quite guilty. As the train pulled away from Hogsmeade Station, John took a moment to reflect on his achievements. Ding! Hogwarts Stage Task 2 completed. Successfully passed the second year as a magic apprentice. Reward, Magic Blood +1, any point 3. Ding! Achievement, maintain top grades until the semester's end. Reward, any point +1, blessing diligence and scholarship. Suddenly, John found himself 4 points richer, adding to the 2 points he had previously earned from the Gryffindor inheritance test, bringing his total to 6 points. Feeling wealthier in magical prowess, he eagerly reviewed his panel. Magic Power, Level 4, Thing 5 Find. Spells, Levitation Charm, Level 4. Transfiguration, Level 3, with Dragon option. Disillusionment Charm, Level 4. Fiendfire, Level 4. Bone-Breaking Curse, Level 4. Fierce Fire, Level 4. Occlumency, Level 4. Patronus Charm, Level 3. Iron Armor Charm, Level 3. Skills, Proficiency in Short Weapons, Level 7. Greatsword Mastery, Level 4. Firearms Mastery, Level 2. Runes Mastery, Level 3. Alchemy Mastery, Level 3. Blessings, Physical Fitness, Quick Reflexes, Precision, Scholar 2.0, Pilot, Long Distance Running, Sword Dance, Night Devil, Troll Buster, Knight, Fire Swallower, Intimidation, Hardening, Dragon Tongue, Botanist, Diligence. John focused on his higher-level skills, finding the Levitation Charm, despite its simplicity, incredibly useful. The Disillusionment Charm, a staple in his arsenal, proved invaluable. He contemplated integrating the blood of an invisible beast, but decided there was no rush to upgrade. The Bone-Breaking Curse was his go-to offensive spell, sufficiently powerful at level 4. Fiendfire, now uncontrollable at level 4, would not be considered for an upgrade until his mana reached level 5. Occlumency and Transfiguration were up for consideration. The Patronus Charm, discovered in the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets, contrasted with the Slytherin Chamber's focus on dark arts and research materials. Understanding that even the most formidable wizards needed knowledge of the dark arts, John planned to upgrade his runes and alchemy skills to level 4 when possible. With 6 points at his disposal, John upgraded his transfiguration to level 4 and invested in the Patronus charm, bringing it to a level where its form could manifest clearly. After allocating 2 points to upgrade his iron armor charm to a level comparable to many aurors, he reserved the remaining points for alchemy, runes, and emergencies. Upon arriving at the station, John bid farewell to his friends, finding his father waiting for him. The inconvenience of car travel sparked a new goal for John, to learn apparition during the vacation. Before heading home, John visited Nocturne Alley, where Johnny the Silver Hand had established a formidable presence. Tang Mi, now the captain of the security team, introduced John to his diverse crew, including werewolves and wizards. Among them was a familiar werewolf, Remus Lupin, whose competence Tang Mi praised, though he mentioned Lupin's potential resignation with regret. Back home, after a week, John ventured into the basement with the magic blood in hand. The blood shimmered with colors, hinting at the presence of invisible beasts within. Drawing from his previous experience, John meticulously sealed the basement before proceeding, determined to harness the magic blood's potential. Blood coursed through his veins, igniting a familiar sensation. John struggled to harness his burgeoning G power, yet it surged uncontrollably, transforming the basement around him. Flames burst forth from his body, morphing into fierce fire dragons that roared into the silence. After a moment that felt like an eternity, John felt as though he was being pulled from deep waters. He quickly cast a cleansing spell on himself and glanced at the illusion spell he had been practicing. Remarkably, what was once a level 4 illusion spell had evolved into a level 5. Such a level of disillusionment curse was unheard of among aurors, save perhaps for a select few elites. Ding! The magic blood activation has concluded. You have acquired the blessings of the invisible beast: foresight, invisibility, insight. Foresight, ability to foresee events within the next 10 minutes. Invisibility, significantly enhances stealth capabilities. Insight, expands field of vision and heightens sensitivity to surroundings. Prophet, awakens the talent for prophecy, with a chance to trigger prophetic visions. John was astounded by these new abilities, reminiscent of the Fire Dragon incident, where he had also gained 4 powerful traits. The last one, Prophet, particularly intrigued him. The ability to foresee the future was a rare and formidable skill. He recalled the most famous prophecy in the wizarding world, the one that foretold the defeat of Voldemort, made by Sybil Trelawney. It was this prophecy that led Voldemort to target Harry Potter, setting in motion the events that would lead to his downfall and Harry's rise as the savior of the wizarding world. Without prophecy, the course of history might have been drastically different. Divination is indeed powerful, John mused, feeling fortunate for his choice to study it. Eager to test his new foresight ability, he concentrated, and his eyes shimmered with colorful lights. The world before him seemed to fast forward, and towards the end of his vision, he saw his son, Watson Wake, screaming in distress. "Dad, what happened?" The vision left John with a sinking feeling. He opened the basement door, only to find Watson lying on the floor, having been eavesdropping and falling in as the door opened. To maintain his fatherly authority, John acted as if nothing was amiss, casually unwrapping a chocolate frog and popping it into his mouth. "John, did you create any new crafts this time?" Watson asked, his eyes darting curiously towards the basement. The lifelike owl John had previously transformed had been a source of pride for Watson. Upon seeing the realistic large dog John had created, Watson's eyes sparkled with excitement. "John, would it be all right to place this in the living room as a decoration?" "Of course," John replied, though his mind was elsewhere, puzzled by the vision of Watson's screaming. Watson eagerly moved the large dog upstairs, with John following behind, filled with concern. As 10 minutes passed without incident, John began to doubt his vision. However, Watson, still indulging in chocolate frogs, suddenly felt a sharp pain in his teeth. His scream echoed through the house, mirroring John's foresight exactly. John looked on in disbelief, initially thinking Watson had bitten his tongue. However, the reality was more mundane. Watson had developed a toothache from tooth decay. Mrs. Wick, upon examining her husband, couldn't help but scoff at his earlier boast of having an iron stomach. What does tooth decay have to do with the stomach? Watson protested, despite the pain. Mrs. Wick, unamused by his stubbornness, pinched Watson's swollen cheek, eliciting another scream from him. In agony, Watson Wake declared, "I can only have my tooth extracted." Mrs. Wick, with an air of indifference, rolled her eyes playfully at her husband. It was hard for her to fathom how an adult like him could still suffer from tooth decay. John, their son, shared her disbelief. He had initially wondered just how many chocolate frogs his father had consumed until he stumbled upon boxes of them stashed in the utility room. "Father, you've really brought this stick upon yourself," John remarked, finally understanding his mother's lack of sympathy. It was clear that Watson's tooth decay was a result of his own indulgence. Watson Wake was now faced with the necessity of visiting the dentist for a tooth extraction. In Europe, the field of dentistry was known to be quite lucrative, with rumors suggesting that a successful dentist could afford luxuries such as owning a golf course upon retirement. Due to the debilitating toothache, Watson was unable to drive himself, prompting Mrs. Wick to take on the responsibility of driving him to his appointment. John decided to accompany them, not out of concern for his father's dental woes, but because he had plans to visit Nocturne Alley. The trip, while primarily for Watson's dental emergency, presented an opportunity for John to explore the darker corners of the wizarding world. The family's journey to the dentist, intertwined with John's ulterior motive, set the stage for an unexpected adventure. Chapter 94, Granger Dental Clinic and Lord Silverhand. "The old Dutton Clinic just passed by," Watson Wake remarked, his tone laced with a hint of vigilance, as his wife maneuvered the car past the mentioned dental office. He couldn't help but clutch his pockets, recalling a previous conversation where he had jokingly said that old Dutton pulled teeth as if he were slaughtering a sheep. Mrs. Wick, usually the epitome of dignity, appeared visibly impatient today, a stark contrast to her usual demeanor. Watson, feeling the car seat beneath him stick uncomfortably, reached out and retrieved a fashion magazine wedged under it. The magazine boasted about Louis Vuitton's latest fashion release, and Watson's concern about his toothache momentarily gave way to the impending doom of his wallet. In his mind, the cost of a tooth extraction paled in comparison to the price of appeasing his wife's taste for luxury. As the car halted on Oxford Street, Watson's fears about his financial fate were confirmed. His wife, who had earlier been adamant about getting his tooth extracted, stepped out of the car with a determined stride, leaving Watson and their son, John, exchanging bewildered glances. "Let's find a clinic to extract the tooth," Watson suggested, his voice tinged with resignation as he awkwardly shifted from the passenger seat to the driver's seat. John eyed his father skeptically, questioning his ability to drive in his current state. "Or perhaps you could try. Maybe your magic could help with the extraction," Watson mused half-jokingly as he contemplated his inability to sway either his wife or son. John merely shrugged, his thoughts drifting to the inevitable bank statement that would arrive the following day, detailing their financial doom. After driving aimlessly around London, they finally arrived at a dentist's office named Granger, a name that John recognized as being the same as his friend Hermione's surname. He mused about the coincidence, wishing he could capture the moment with a photo to show Hermione. The clinic was modest in size, with a clean and simple waiting area occupied by several children and adults. The sight of one child screaming in pain was enough to unsettle anyone. As John and Watson waited, a young woman in the waiting area took notice of Watson's composed and successful demeanor. Recently divorced and not keen on spending her nights alone, she saw in Watson the archetype of a British gentleman and decided to make her move. However, her attempts to engage Watson and then John in conversation were met with indifference, especially after John's curt response to her inquiry about his father's mood. Their interaction was interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Granger, Hermione's father, who recognized John immediately. With his thick hair and friendly demeanor, Mr. Granger was a stark contrast to the middle-aged men John was accustomed to seeing. Mistaking John's visit as an intention to see Hermione, Mr. Granger was quickly corrected and informed about Watson's toothache. Recognizing the Wakes, Mr. Granger warmly ushered them into the clinic, eager to assist. The young woman in the waiting area watched resentfully as the two men were led away, lamenting the scarcity of good men. Inside, Mr. Granger's professional demeanor shone through as he prepared to address Watson's dental woes, proving that in some cases, a familiar face can make all the difference. Relieved, he offered a wry smile. "She visits the clinic daily, attempting to engage me in conversation," he confessed, glancing around guiltily before whispering, "Please, don't mention this to my wife. She's quite sensitive about these matters." Watson nodded in understanding, clapping Mr. Granger on the shoulder. "It's a tough situation. Being too charming can sometimes be a curse," he empathized. This exchange bonded them instantly, transforming them into fast friends. John, observing the camaraderie between the two, couldn't help but interject with a hint of sarcasm. "Dad, are your teeth no longer bothering you?" His comment was a gentle nudge aimed at bringing his father's attention back to the matter at hand. Watson, reminded of his discomfort, winced, acknowledging the persistent ache. As Mr. Granger attended to Watson's dental woes, John meandered through the clinic, his attention caught by a newspaper detailing the upheaval in a once dominant nation, now fragmented and chaotic. "It seems Grandpa was also caught up in these affairs," John mused, recalling his grandfather's notable local influence and the government's potential interest in leveraging it for stability. Lost in thought, John was startled by a familiar voice. "John!" He turned to see Hermione, her arms burdened with an impressively thick book, rushing towards him. The book landed on the table with a thud, signaling her arrival. "You should have told me you were coming," she chided, expressing her disappointment at his unannounced visit, especially since she had invited friends over, hoping to bridge the gap between her wizarding and muggle worlds. John gestured towards his father, explaining the dental emergency caused by an excess of chocolate. Hermione, puzzled by John's casual demeanor, suggested diving into their next year's textbooks, a proposal that made John visibly uncomfortable. "There's no need to rush things," he advised, trying to ease her academic fervor. He illustrated his point by magically rejuvenating a wilted lily, demonstrating the interconnectedness of knowledge and the simplicity it brings to understanding magic. Hermione, momentarily sidetracked by the magic demonstration, ventured to ask about the relevance of the history of magic, to which John humorously conceded its limited applicability. Their exchange, filled with light-hearted banter, underscored their deepening friendship. Meanwhile, Watson's newfound bond with Mr. Granger flourished, their camaraderie raising eyebrows and sparking rumors of a rejuvenated zest for life. Watson's announcement of an extended stay in London, including plans to play golf with Mr. Granger, only fueled John's suspicions about the nature of their friendship, leaving him to wonder about the adventures that awaited these two unlikely companions. Would they really think that? The outside world often labeled them as coming from a corrupt country, so perhaps they should. However, staying in London had its perks, saving John some trouble. He was on his way to Nocturne Alley, which suited his plans perfectly. Silverhand's Johnny's store had emerged just the previous year, yet it had rapidly grown into a major establishment, surpassing Bogenbach in merely a year. Mundungus Fletcher always considered himself indispensable, even more so than the elusive Lord Silverhand, who had yet to make an appearance. With such a mindset, Mundungus's confidence soared, and he gradually began to see himself as the true master of the shop. "Shelby, you despicable cur, I'd better not catch you here again." Mundungus's primary grievance was with Tommy Shelby, the security captain who seemed to have appeared out of nowhere and never showed Mundungus any respect. This lack of acknowledgement irked Mundungus to no end, fueling his desire to oust Tommy from his position. Tommy Shelby merely cast a cold glance at Mundungus. The audacity of this petty thief to raise his voice. Little did Mundungus know, the success of Johnny Silverhands was largely due to the connections of the mysterious lord. Without such influence, the Ministry of Magic's higher-ups and the pure-blood families would never have allowed the shop to thrive. Unfortunately, Mundungus was oblivious to this fact, ranting like a petulant child. As Mundungus continued his tirade, a figure entered the shop. Mundungus, still seething, turned to glare at the newcomer. A silver mask caught his eye, complemented by a green robe adorned with exquisite lace. The figure's slender frame was elegantly dressed in a slim waistcoat suit, with a golden watch chain adding a touch of sophistication and luxury. Mundungus stared at the visitor. Encountering mysterious individuals was not uncommon in Nocturne A, but something about this one seemed different. Angrily, he demanded, "What do you want?" The response came, muffled by the silver mask, yet Mundungus could detect a hint of disdain. "What?" he snapped, his patience wearing thin. "Get out of my shop if you're not buying anything," Mundungus barked. "Your shop?" "Mundungus, it seems you've forgotten to whom this place truly belongs," the masked figure retorted, their voice tinged with familiarity. Mundungus's mind raced as he tried to place the voice. His eyes widened in realization, and he gasped, "Your Lord Johnny Silverhand?" The presence of the mysterious lord in his shop was a revelation to Mundungus. The realization that he had been so boldly challenging the very person responsible for the shop's success was a humbling moment. The dynamics within the walls of Silverhand's Johnny's store were about to shift dramatically, all under the watchful gaze of Lord Johnny Silverhand. Chapter 95, Lupin and Fenrir. "It seems you remember me, Mundungus," John said, his tone icy as he stepped closer, allowing Mundungus a clear view of his eyes through the mask's eye holes. The eyes transformed, taking on a draconic appearance, and a palpable sense of coercion enveloped Mundungus. He trembled uncontrollably, rolling out to kneel before John, his voice quivering with fear. "Honorable Lord Silverhand, Mundungus Fletcher offers his most sincere and respectful greetings." Any trace of Mundungus's former complacency and arrogance evaporated in the presence of the Silver Hand. Sweat dripped from his nose as he attempted a flattering smile. "Your Excellency Silverhand, this has all been a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" John entered the Johnny Silverhand store with an air of indifference, causing the security team to tense. They were werewolves, keenly aware of the danger emanating from the figure before them. Their captain, Tommy Shelby, approached John with a respectful bow. "Welcome back, Your Excellency." As the face behind Johnny Silverhand, Tommy was the primary contact for the store. He was taken aback by John's imposing aura, feeling the weight of a superior's presence. "We have been eagerly awaiting your return," he said with due respect. Seeing their captain's deference, the security team lowered their wands, no longer perceiving their boss as a threat. "It seems you appreciate what we've done with the place," John remarked, pleased with the state of the Johnny Silverhand store. Mundungus and Tommy had managed the establishment well, both inside and out. The return of the mysterious Silver Hand prompted all employees to gather. The security team had expanded to 10, including the original 4 werewolves, a new squad led by Remus Lupin, and 4 other retired hitmen. Together with Tommy, their combat prowess rivaled that of Ministry Aurors. Mundungus had also hired Kim Ledisley, a tall, handsome young man with blonde hair and blue eyes, to help run the business. His presence next to Mundungus added a touch of humor to the scene. "Dear Silver Hand, here is the income from the last year," Mundungus said, presenting the ledger. "Most of it has been deposited in Gringotts, with some used for business purchases." John's own contributions couldn't sustain the shop's vast inventory alone, necessitating purchases from various sources, including some less reputable dealings. After a brief glance at the ledger, John addressed Mundungus, his words sending a chill down the latter's spine. "Mundungus, I would hate to see you permanently removed from Johnny the Silver Hand." Mundungus fell to the ground in terror, protesting his innocence. "Your Excellency Silver Hand, I swear, I haven't. Your oaths are worth little," John remarked, a strange force lifting Mundungus off the ground by his neck. Struggling for air, Mundungus realized the gravity of his situation, his fear of death overwhelming him. "That's enough, Your Excellency Silver Hand," Remus Lupin intervened, wand drawn and aimed at John. "You must release him." Tommy drew his wand, his voice cold. "Remus, remember your place." "Do you understand the source of the funds he's been embezzling?" John asked, addressing both Remus and Tommy without releasing Mundungus. "I've allocated funds to support every young wizard affected by curses. Thanks to this fund, even the poorest can afford essential potions and care." The tension in the room was palpable as John's words sank in, highlighting the gravity of Mundungus's actions and the importance of the funds he jeopardized. Under the light of the moon, Tension filled the air as Remus Lupin faced a difficult decision. John's grip tightened, and Mundungus Fletcher gasped for air, his life hanging by a thread. John spoke with a chilling indifference. "This man has embezzled more than half of the funds intended for our cause. Do you understand the implications of this?" Lupin, conflicted, finally lowered his wand, unable to defend Mundungus any longer. "No, Remus, save me," Mundungus pleaded, air evident in his voice as he realized the extent of Johnny Silverhand's knowledge about his deceit. The betrayal was especially grave considering the plight of young werewolves, who faced discrimination and hardship, something Lupin, a werewolf since childhood, understood all too well. The anger in the eyes of the werewolf community was palpable. Just as Mundungus braced for the worst, the grip on him loosened. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, grateful for a second chance. "This is your first and last warning, Mundungus. I expect full restitution," John stated, his voice carrying a warning that left no room for negotiation. Mundungus, overwhelmed by fear and gratitude, clung to John's leg, promising immediate action. The incident served as a stark lesson to the onlooking wizards from the security team, who had initially underestimated John. They now understood the respect and fear that Tang Mi and others held for Lord Silverhand. His ability to command respect through both compassion and power was undeniable. Kim Lattisley, a young wizard who had been recruited by Mundungus, watched the scene unfold with a mix of emotions. He admired John's generosity towards the cursed young wizards and realized that true leadership required a balance of kindness and authority. Meanwhile, Nocturne Alley, a place never known for peace, was about to witness another confrontation. A group of rough-looking individuals, led by Fenrir Greyback, entered John's store with clear malicious intent. Tang Mi, standing by John's side, identified the leader as the notorious werewolf who coveted the wolfsbane potion. John, sensing Lupin's distress, inquired about his reaction. Lupin revealed his painful history with Fenrir, who had bitten him as a child, marking him forever. John's disdain for Fenrir grew, understanding the depth of his cruelty. Fenrir, with a menacing arrogance, demanded to see the owner of the store. John stepped forward, his presence commanding. "You better have a good reason for being here," John stated coolly. Fenrir, undeterred, made a direct threat, demanding the wolfsbane potion with a bloodthirsty gleam in his eyes. His reputation for preying on children and turning them into his followers through fear and manipulation was well known, marking him as a despicable figure in the wizarding world. John, facing this new threat, prepared to protect his principles and those under his care, signaling the beginning of another battle for justice in the dark corners of Nocturne Alley. Fenrir Greyback, a man notorious for his cruelty, was known to steal and kill for sustenance. His attacks were not limited to the nights of the full moon. He was a constant threat. Engaging in all manners of wickedness, threatening a shopkeeper was, for him, a trivial matter. Yet, as he issued his threats, a sneer formed on John's face, hidden beneath his mask. With a calm demeanor, John spoke, "It seems you've misunderstood something." "Huh?" Fenrir's brow furrowed in confusion. John stepped closer, his expression unreadable as he faced Fenrir's grotesque and menacing visage. "Only the strong have the right to dominate the weak," he stated, his voice carrying a light but firm tone. Fenrir, revealing his sharp fangs in a menacing snarl, lunged forward, aiming to tear John's neck apart. However, in a mere second, a scream echoed through the air, followed by the splatter of blood. Chapter 96. The Arrival of the Silver Hand and the Horror of the Ghost Curse. An ear hit the ground with a soft thud, severed from its owner. Fenrir, the werewolf, clutched the side of his head in agony. The perpetrator, John, stood coolly with a dagger in his right hand, its blade stained with blood. "I want you to die," Fenrir roared, lunging at John in a blind rage. John sidestepped with ease, his dagger dancing through the air to leave 7 bloody wounds on Fenrir's body. Fenrir collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. John, with a look of disdain, wiped the werewolf's blood from his dagger onto Fenrir's clothes. "Pick up your ear. I won't have your filthy blood staining my floor," he commanded indifferently. Fenrir, fueled by pain and rage, let out a howl that was echoed by the 4 werewolves accompanying him. They charged at John in a frenzied attack. Lupin, witnessing the scene, raised his wand to intervene, but Tang Mi held him back. Despite the danger, Tangmi's confident demeanor suggested she knew something they didn't. John, unfazed by the approaching threat, simply stated, "I said, keep my floor clean." With a graceful flick of his wand, he transformed a nearby bench into two large dogs that pounced on the werewolves, while another spell sent one werewolf floating helplessly towards the ceiling. A repelling charm flung another attacker across the room, and just as Fenrir was about to sink his teeth into John, a fireball engulfed him, singeing his fur and skin. One werewolf managed to regain his footing, only to be met with the pointed end of John's wand. "Crucio," John uttered, and the werewolf writhed in agony under the curse's effect. Lupin and the surrounding wizards watched in horror, realizing the dark capabilities that lurked within Nocturne Alley. Despite Fenrir's resilience, he was no match for John, who effortlessly subdued all 5 werewolves, including the formidable Fenrir. John's prowess earned him the moniker Johnny Silverhand, a testament to his formidable strength. With a casual wave of his wand, John conjured chains from the floor, binding Fenrir securely. He then approached Lupin, offering him a choice. "He once bit you. Now I leave his fate in your hands." Lupin was torn. His hatred for Fenrir was palpable, yet he wished for justice through Azkaban, not death. John, perceiving Lupin's hesitation, sighed. "Lupin, you are too kind-hearted." He turned back to Fenrir, raising his wand once more. "The soul returns," he whispered, casting a spell unknown to those present. Fenrir's screams filled the room as his soul, a transparent silver apparition, was forcibly extracted from his body. The wizards watched in terror as John, with a flick of his wand, inflicted soul-deep wounds on Fenrir, who howled in anguish. The ordeal ended with Fenrir's soul, now missing its arms, being returned to his body, leaving him in a state of deep, unending sleep. Lupin, speechless and shaken, struggled to comprehend the power John wielded. Even Tang Mi, a veteran of many battles, was astounded by the young wizard's terrifying spell. "2 arms as the price. I doubt they'll dare to return," John remarked, snapping his fingers to dissipate Fenrir's physical arms into smoke. The remaining werewolves, witnessing the fate of their leader, fled in terror, leaving behind a silence that spoke volumes of the fear and respect John had instilled in them. Kneeling on the ground, the werewolves resembled submissive puppies. John approached one of them and asked in a low voice, "Who sent you here?" The werewolf hesitated before John pressed, "I need a name, unless you prefer to deal with Fenrir." Before the werewolf could further delay, John's wand lightly touched his forehead, causing the werewolf to sweat profusely and panic. "It was Sean Shafiq. He sent us," he confessed. "Shafiq? It seems the purebloods have taken an interest in this place," John mused, putting away his wand. The werewolf mistakenly thought he was off the hook, but John had other plans. Turning to Tang Mi, he instructed, "Lock them. I'm sure someone will find them." "Interesting." Tang Mi nodded in agreement, and the werewolves were soon confined in a dark cell. In the dead of night, Aurors led by Rufus Scrimger, the chief of the Auror office, arrived at Johnny Silverhand's door. Scrimger, with his imposing presence reminiscent of an aged lion, oversaw the transfer of the notorious werewolves to Azkaban. "First time meeting, Mr. Johnny Silverhand," Scrimger greeted, extending his hand. John, wearing a mask, responded with a light smile. "Rufus Scrimger, I trust you appreciate my gift." The smile on Scrimger's face was unmistakable. "This isn't the first time you've aided me," he acknowledged. "I won't forget it, and neither will you," John replied, his tone casual yet meaningful. "Perhaps you could inform me of Sean Shafiq's whereabouts?" "Sean Shafiq? He's likely to find himself in a predicament," Scrimger remarked, his expression turning serious. "Lord Silverhand, I hope you won't put me in a difficult position." "Of course, the 28 Saints are quite the rare breed," John said, his tone suggesting he was speaking of something far less noble. Scrimger's eyes narrowed, then he offered, "I can provide you with the address of the Shafiq family estate." Their exchange made it clear they were using a pure-blood family as leverage. Scrimger, recognizing the extent of Johnny Silverhand's influence, saw an opportunity. The protection extended to Hagrid, a half-blood giant, by someone of Johnny's stature, hinted at powerful connections. Scrimger, ambitious for advancement, viewed Johnny Silverhand as his ticket upwards. At the Shafiq Manor, located in the suburbs far from Muggles, Sean Shafiq stewed over his financial losses. With his light eyebrows, slender cheeks, and a beard adorning his wizard robes, Sean did not present an imposing figure. His strength lay in his intellect, with the Bogenbach antique shop in Nocturne Alley being one of his profitable ventures. However, the emergence of Johnny Silverhand's store had rendered his investments futile, much to Sean's frustration. He had hoped to buy back the shop to recoup his losses, but Mundungus Fletcher had outmaneuvered him, acquiring the store for a hefty sum. This transaction, which included the return of black magic artifacts belonging to the Shafiq family, infuriated Sean to the point of wishing harm upon Mundungus. The werewolves better have torn Mundungus apart. That damn Johnny, even if he begs for mercy, I won't forgive him. Sean seethed, his face contorted with rage. The house elves, sensing his fury, quietly retreated to avoid his wrath. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room, and Sean, in a fit of anger, threatened to punish the clumsy house elf responsible. However, as he stormed out, he realized the room was unusually dark, not because of his stinginess, but due to an ominous presence. As this realization dawned on him, the candles in the room flickered to life, revealing an unexpected visitor. Chapter 97, The Invincible Man and Shafiq's Concession. Two figures materialized in the room, one seated, the other standing. Sean Shafiq, his voice sharp with alarm, demanded, "Who are you?" His outcry wasn't born of foolishness, but a strategic attempt to rouse the ancestral portraits adorning the walls. Sensing something amiss upon the duo's silent entry, given the magical barriers protecting Shafiq Manor, Sean hoped to alert his household. Yet his efforts were in vain. The portraits remained undisturbed, the previous head of the Shafiq family deep in slumber, and the usually attentive house elf nowhere to be seen. An unsettling silence had enveloped the manor. The intruders merely observed Sean with a quiet intensity. John, lounging on the sofa, idly twirled an emerald ring on his left hand. Meeting Sean's gaze with a calm demeanor, he placed a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. "Shh! Please, be quiet." Panic setting in, Sean decided to preemptively strike. Grasping the eagle-headed cane, he drew it back, revealing a hidden wand. The best defense is a good offense, he thought, aiming at the man on the sofa. "Stupefy," he shouted, simultaneously countered by a calm Expelliarmus from the other. The red light struck Sean, disarming him as his wand flew from his grasp, only to be intercepted mid-air by the man wearing a silver mask. Sean's face paled, his eyes locked on the figure who had managed wandless magic. "Casting without a wand? I don't recall having such a formidable adversary," Sean muttered, disbelief coloring his tone. "That was once. Johnny Silverhand at your service," John introduced himself nonchalantly while examining the wand he had caught. Its silver-painted wood seemed too ostentatious for his taste. With a flick of his wrist, he snapped the wand, discarding it. Retrieving an elm wand, he pointed it at Sean, his voice indifferent. "You shouldn't have targeted my shop, Sean Shafiq." "I don't know what you're talking about," Sean retorted, his voice sharp with defiance. "It's all right. I don't require your confession," John replied, his gaze piercing through the silver mask. In that moment, Sean felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if prey under the gaze of a predator. Tangmi, donned in a white mask, stepped forward, offering respectfully, "My lord, allow me to handle this." "Proceed." John consented with a nod. "I'm a pureblood. You can't simply attack me. The Ministry of Magic will not stand for it," Sean blustered, clinging to his pure-blood status as a shield, a status that held little sway in the shadows of Nocturne Alley. Ignoring the threat, Tangmi brandished his wand, his voice cold as he cast, "Crucio." Sean's protests were cut short, his body convulsing in agony on the floor, silent save for the sound of his suffering. "You might feign ignorance," John mused, toying with the elm wand, "but we both know better, don't we?" As the first wave of pain subsided, Sean, pale and trembling, spat out a threat through clenched teeth. "I will destroy your shop." "Such resilience," John observed, his voice tinged with disdain as he reclined against the stiff sofa. Tangmi, expressionless, renewed the curse, prolonging Sean's torment for an excruciating half-hour. Finally, John inserted a zongsi, a magical device of his own creation, into Sean's wand, signaling Tangmi to cease. Drenched in sweat, Sean lay defeated, his once cunning eyes now filled with terror. "What do you want from me?" Sean gasped, desperation evident in his voice. "What do I want?" John echoed, his tone laced with contempt. "It's ironic you should ask, Sean. After all, you're the one who initiated this conflict, so tell me, what is it that you desire? Confusion flickered across Sean's face, uncomprehending of John's rhetorical question. It appears your reputation for shrewdness is unfounded. Your silence has only served to deepen my displeasure. Surrender all your assets in Nocturne Alley, John demanded, his voice cold and unyielding, leaving no room for negotiation. Alley, this is your punishment. John slow-eyed, his voice heavy with a sense of finality. With a casual flick of his wand, he delivered the sentence without mercy. You have 3 choices: death, surrender, or face the consequences. Shaowen realized that John was demanding his submission. As a member of the prestigious Shafiq family, one of the 28 sacred families, Sean's response was fierce. Impossible, he roared, defiance blazing in his eyes. Pity, John murmured, his voice low and ominous. As he spoke, white smoke began to rise from Sean's skin. Sean watched in horror, unable to extinguish it. His soul was being extracted, bit by bit, a sight so terrifying that even the stubborn Sean couldn't help but scream. John advanced, his wand tracing a spell directly onto Sean's soul. Leave, Sean Shafiq, and never return, he whispered into Sean's ear. Paralyzed, Sean could only scream as the marks engraved on his soul burned intensely. Once the ordeal was over, John carefully grasped the soul and returned it to Sean's body. The moment Sean was back in his own flesh, he clutched at his heart, rolling on the ground and screaming. Though there was no physical wound, the pain was as intense as if a red-hot iron had been pressed against his heart. Sean's wand fell to the ground, abandoned. John turned and walked away, leaving Sean writhing in agony. Fueled by hatred, Sean attempted to lift his wand against John, only to find he couldn't move his arm, and the curse he intended to utter vanished from his lips. In disbelief, he tried to cast a curse at a sofa, but his body refused to obey, as if bound by invisible chains. Attempting to speak, he was met with a sharp pain in his head, as excruciating as a knife stabbing through his heart. Eventually, Sean managed to rise from the floor. Approaching a mirror, he tore off his clothes to reveal a line of words etched over his heart. A person who cannot be an enemy. Below, his chest was unmarked. Overwhelmed, Sean collapsed, realizing he couldn't even utter a curse against Johnny Silverhand now. In a fit of despair, he destroyed everything in his path until he finally passed out in the manor. Meanwhile, at Shafiq Manor, all the guards lay defeated. The family's loyal elf hid under a bed, while Lupine and 3 security guards cautiously approached the manor, finding it eerily quiet. After a moment, the sound of destruction echoed from within, and Johnny Silverhand emerged with Tang Mi, announcing, Sean Shafiq was quite generous. He's offered all of Nocturne Alley's properties as a gift. Lupine was puzzled by what Johnny could have said to Sean to elicit such a response, but it was clear it wasn't anything pleasant. Kim Lattisley, a young clerk, curiously inquired, Sir, how did you persuade Shafiq to apologize? John paused, a hint of mockery in his voice. I presented him with an offer he couldn't refuse. Kim frowned, pondering what kind of offer could compel an ancient, pure-blood family to capitulate. Tang Mi, overhearing the conversation, couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and fear for his boss. The ghost spell John used, which could extract a soul without leaving a physical mark, was more sinister than any killing curse. Tang Mi was grateful he wasn't on the wrong side of his boss's wrath. As they left the anti-apparition area, John placed a hand on Tang Mi's shoulder, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed. Despite possessing such formidable powers, John couldn't apparate, a fact that puzzled Tang Mi. With a flick of his wand, Tang Mi apparated away with John, leaving the rest to follow, all wondering why someone with such abilities would bother with such limitations. The Shafiq family, once dominant figures in Nocturne Alley, abruptly withdrew from the scene, relinquishing all their properties to an emerging power, Johnny Silverhand. This move was not just a simple transaction, it was a retreat that saw the Shafiq family abandoning London entirely, seeking fortunes amidst the chaos of a foreign land. Rumors swirled about their intentions. Some speculated they aimed to profit from the Muggle conflict, CTS, while others believed the patriarch sought a political career, eyeing the position of Minister of Magic. With the Shafiq family's departure, Nocturne Alley witnessed the rise of a new ruler. Johnny Silverhand, a name that had only recently entered the lexicon of the wizarding world, quickly became synonymous with power. His ascendancy was so swift and decisive that even those who had been eyeing the throne hesitated, then retreated, recognizing the futility of their ambitions. Rufus Scrimgeour, a man not easily surprised, found himself taken aback by the sudden shift in power dynamics. He had been skeptical of the rumors, knowing too well the wealth and influence Sean Shafiq wielded in Nocturne Alley, assets he believed the man would never abandon willingly. The only explanation that made sense to Scrimgeour was that Shafiq had been forced out. Johnny Silverhand, a figure who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, had managed to exile a member of one of the 28 sacred families in a single night. This realization prompted Scrimgeour to reconsider his stance towards Johnny Silverhand. The new king of Nocturne Alley was not just a man, he had become a legend, reshaping the very fabric of their world with his actions. Chapter 98, Lucius and the Silver Hand Letter. In the opulent yet somber halls of Malfoy Manor, Lucius Malfoy found himself in a particularly troubling predicament. His recent actions, which involved coercing the other Hogwarts trustees into suspending Dumbledore, had backfired spectacularly. With Dumbledore's return, Lucius was ousted from the school board, a development that boded ill not only for the Malfoy family's reputation, but also for their collection of dark magic artifacts. It was a poorly kept secret that nearly every old pureblood family possessed two things: a house elf and at least one dark magic item. The Malfoys, once ardent followers of Voldemort, were no exception. Their allegiance, albeit fraught with Voldemort's mistrust, had been somewhat rewarded due to their ancient lineage and their trove of dark artifacts. However, Lucius's concern grew as he became aware of Arthur Weasley's keen interest in the Malfoy Manor, particularly after learning that his son had inadvertently exposed the existence of their dark magic vault. The thought of Arthur Weasley storming through their gates and dragging the entire Malfoy family to Azkaban was a constant source of dread. Lucius had considered selling the dark artifacts, but his preferred outlet, the Bogenbach antique shop, had vanished without a trace. His thoughts then turned to Sean Shafiq, a known collector of such items. However, Shafiq's reputation for driving hard bargains made Lucius hesitate. By the time he decided to approach Shafiq, it was too late. The man had vanished, leaving Lucius with dwindling options. Damn Weasley! Damn Harry Potter! Lucius's frustration boiled over, his fist striking the banister with force. Control yourself, Lucius, Narcissa chided, her demeanor cool yet commanding. She was aware of the gravity of their situation, but refused to let despair take hold. You must find a way to either conceal or dispose of the dark artifacts. We cannot afford to show weakness, especially not in front of Draco. Peering out the window at their son, who was diligently practicing his magic, Narcissa noted the changes in him. Hogwarts had transformed Draco from a sheltered child into a more resilient and independent young wizard. This observation brought her some comfort, even as she sought to reassure Lucius. Lucius, however, was visibly agitated. Arthur Weasley has made threats against me, and with Bogenbach gone and Shafiq unreachable, I'm at a loss, he confessed. The Malfoy family was not in need of money, but finding a secure place to hide their dark artifacts had become a pressing concern. Narcissa, ever pragmatic, encouraged Lucius to explore other avenues. We must try, Lucius. I refuse to let our son grow up with his father in Azkaban. As they deliberated their next move, a black owl with long ears arrived at the manor, dropping a letter on the windowsill. Lucius, preoccupied with his thoughts, expected Dobby, their house elf, to retrieve it. However, he quickly remembered that Dobby was no longer under their control, a consequence of Harry Potter's intervention. With a scowl, Lucius stomped over to the letter, his mood darkening further. Little did he know, the contents of that letter would set the Malfoy family on an unexpected course. The letter bore no name, only sealed with black wax marked by a silver handprint. Lucius Malfoy's mind raced to the current ruler of Nocturne Alley, Johnny Silverhand, recognizing the emblem as that of the Johnny Silverhand store. A wave of unease washed over him, despite knowing it was likely a coincidence. The moment he pondered over Johnny Silverhand, a letter from the man himself arrived. Upon opening the letter, Lucius's expression shifted through a myriad of emotions, all of which were observed by Narcissa. She approached, took the letter from his hands, and read it herself. Like Lucius, she was left puzzled and inquired, "Do you know Johnny Silverhand?" Lucius shook his head, his expression laden with confusion. "We've never met," he admitted. The couple exchanged a look of bewilderment. The letter offered them a safe haven for the Malfoy family's dark artifacts and even proposed assistance in restoring Lucius to his former position as a director at Hogwarts. Each offer was fraught with risk, leaving them to wonder about Johnny Silverhand's motivations. Lucius hesitated before voicing a thought, his gaze drifting to his left hand. Could he be? Narcissa's expression hardened. The stakes were high. Being associated with Death Eaters meant Azkaban. Yet, outside of such affiliations, Lucius couldn't fathom why Johnny Silverhand would extend such an offer. Meanwhile, Draco Malfoy was unaware of the dilemma his parents faced. He found solace in the idea that only one's own strength is the most glorious. He aimed spells at a human-shaped target, imagining it as Harry Potter. His resolve hardened by the disdain he'd faced from his peers and the dismissal from his father. His transformation was complete, with Goyle and Crabbe serving merely as sparring partners. Elsewhere, Mundungus Fletcher felt the sting of contributing to the Little Wizard Fund, a sensation akin to being sliced with a knife. With Johnny Silverhand's influence growing, wizards previously deterred by the Shafiq family now freely patronized the store, leading to a significant increase in turnover. Kim Lettisley's constant smile and the sound of galleons clinking were testaments to their success. John, now seated in his office surrounded by letters, murmured a thanks to Riddle, his black owl, as he fed it a piece of dried fish. The letters, mostly inquiries from Nocturne Alley's dark wizards about new regulations, indicated a shift in power from the Shafiq family to Johnny Silverhand. John's responses were firm, offering stark choices to those who challenged him, Azkaban or a werewolf's bite. His letters of condolence, marked by a large silver handprint, served as a final warning: align with him or face disappearance from Nocturne Alley. This approach solidified Johnny Silverhand's reputation as a more decisive leader than Sean Shafiq. A letter from Malfoy Manor caught John's attention. He smiled slightly upon reading its contents, remarking, "Lucius Malfoy is a sensible man, but dealing with the Death Eaters requires finesse." Despite Lucius's known affiliation with the Death Eaters, John recognized that his allegiance had been more a matter of convenience than conviction, especially evident after Voldemort's downfall. The first to distance himself from the relationship was Lucius Malfoy, a decision that aligned perfectly with the Slytherin ethos of loyalty, strategic calculation, and self-preservation. Following Voldemort's resurrection, Lucius would inevitably return to his side, yet he was far from being a fervent devotee. The true zealots of Voldemort's cause were the ones languishing in Azkaban, while those on the outside, like Lucius, were merely opportunists, content with playing a supporting role from the sidelines. "Make good use of this identity," John mused, stroking his chin thoughtfully. The persona of Johnny Silverhand had grown to be a figure of considerable influence. John was well aware that his activities should not be confined to the shadows of Nocturne Alley. Diagon Alley, the bustling heart where wizards from across the nation congregated, was the real prize. With his mask securely in place, John descended the stairs. The sight of the mask alone commanded respect and awe from the wizards he passed, a testament to the reputation he had built. This display of reverence did not go unnoticed by the Aurors tasked with surveillance. It was clear to them that someone potentially more problematic than Sean Shafiq had emerged on the scene. Chapter 99, Apparition and the Daily Prophet. The most crucial elements to remember are the 3 Ds: destination, determination, and deliberation. Focus intently on your destination, muster every ounce of your determination to occupy the desired space, and proceed with careful deliberation. Tommy Shelby, a master of the apparition spell, explained. By his estimation, his proficiency could be classified as level 5. In the midst of a desolate jungle, John was diligently learning the intricacies of apparition. To be precise, the spell is bifurcated into 2 distinct phases, disappearing from the starting point and reappearing at the destination. Mastery of both phases is imperative to avoid the dreaded splinching. At the moment, John gazed at his newly reattached ring finger, a mix of frustration and speechlessness evident on his face. "You're actually doing quite well. I've seen someone decapitate themselves while attempting to apparate, Tang Mi remarked, as he and Bai Xian attended to John's injury. It turned out that their boss's so-called secret mission was essentially a remedial course. Tang Mi mused that had he not pursued a career as an auror, he might have had the makings of a Hogwarts professor. Once his finger was reattached, John flexed it, noting, "The sensation of splinching feels less like a cut and more like being torn apart." Despite its convenience, the apparition charm was far from a pleasant experience. It felt akin to being forcibly squeezed through a narrow pipe, only to be expelled out the other end. After numerous attempts, John finally managed to add the apparition charm to his repertoire of spells. Contemplating the risks of further splinching against the benefits of leveling up, John resolved to use any means necessary to enhance his proficiency. The difference at level 2 was palpable. Don't underestimate the complexity of the apparition curse. It took me weeks of practice before I managed a successful apparition. Always remember the 3D principle, which is... Tang Mi's advice was abruptly cut off by the sharp sound of John apparating successfully from 100 meters away, completely unscathed. A slight dizziness was the only discomfort John experienced upon landing, a minor inconvenience that indicated his successful mastery of the spell. His subsequent attempt brought him directly beside Tang Mi, albeit with a slight deviation from the intended spot. John's achievement left Tang Mi speechless. "What were you saying?" John asked with a grin. Never mind," Tang Mi replied, his expression a mix of astonishment and envy. He couldn't help but reflect on his own arduous journey with the spell, which had resulted in numerous splinchings, including a near loss of a leg. In contrast, John had mastered the apparition curse in a single day. With his newfound skill, John was relieved to no longer rely on mundane transportation. The local flu network, managed by Mundungus, was notoriously unreliable, likely due to his financial delinquencies. Despite his modest income, Mundungus's frugality bordered on extreme, a trait John found peculiar, yet chose not to judge too harshly. Noticing Tang Mi's worn attire, John decided it was time for a wardrobe update. The clothes, clearly mended multiple times, were ill-suited for the stylish offerings of Johnny Silverhand's store. Understanding Tang Mi's aversion to poverty, stemming from his struggles during his werewolf transformation years, John took it upon himself to provide new outfits for Tang Mi and the security team. The transformation was immediate, turning what once resembled a gathering of beggars into a scene straight out of a fashion runway. As John prepared to depart, he ensured that Remus Lupin was not overlooked. Lupin, deeply touched by the gesture, had previously delayed his resignation in hopes of securing an additional bottle of Wolfsbane potion. The potion's quality from Johnny Silverhand was unparalleled, and Lupin was determined to maintain his sanity, especially with the prospect of teaching at Hogwarts on the horizon. Tang Mi, understanding the struggles of being a werewolf, compassionately saved his monthly bottle of Wolfsbane potion, opting for the least expensive option to endure the full moon. He empathized with Lupin, recognizing the goodness in him, and thus chose to support him silently. "Thank you, Sir Johnny Silverhand," he expressed his gratitude, acknowledging the unique support he received. The security team, adorned in their distinctive uniforms and equipped with spell-imbued amulets and rings, exuded a remarkable aura. "Remus, you are always welcome back here," John warmly reassured the werewolf, aware of the challenges he faced in finding stable employment due to his condition. He instructed Mundungus to prepare 3 bottles of the finest Wolfsbane potion as a farewell gift, a generous gesture that underscored his understanding and support for werewolves. Unlike others, John valued them as true colleagues, a sentiment deeply appreciated by Lupin. When a copy of the Daily Prophet arrived, delivered by an owl, John was intrigued by the headline proclaiming a new king of Diagon Alley. Rita Skeeter's article, known for her provocative writing, dubbed Johnny Silverhand as the second king, a title suggesting a position of power just beneath the Ministry of Magic. John was amused by the exaggerated claims in the article, including accusations of him feeding people to a fire dragon and orchestrating a heist at Gringotts. He jokingly compared Rita to another great writer, Gilderoy Lockhart, for her sensational storytelling. However, an exclusive news preview caught his attention, promising to unveil the true identity of Johnny Silverhand. Surprised by the claim, John wondered why he was unaware of any exclusive interview. Dismissing it as another of Rita's fabrications, he didn't give it much thought. Feeding a small dried fish to Riddle, his pet, John pondered the power of public opinion. In an era before the widespread use of the internet, newspapers and magazines were the primary sources of information for the wizarding world. He recognized the influence of the Daily Prophet and even the Quibbler, despite the latter being considered more of a joke by many. As he interacted with Riddle, a beetle caught his attention. With a swift motion, he captured the beetle, suspecting it was not an ordinary insect, but an animagus. Upon revealing its true form, the beetle transformed into Rita Skeeter, the journalist with a penchant for sensational stories. Her appearance, marked by extravagant glasses and a distinctive style, confirmed John's suspicions about the source of the provocative article. John regarded her with an unexpected sense of foreboding, relieved that he had kept his mask on. He mused to himself, "Thankfully, I didn't reveal my identity. Otherwise, tomorrow's headline in the Daily Prophet would be a sensational shock. Johnny Silverhand, a Hogwarts student." Animagi were notoriously difficult to detect, but thanks to John's keen intuition and the eye of truth, far more sensitive than any ordinary-looking glass, he wasn't easily deceived. Rita Skeeter, visibly shaken and with eyes darkened with fear beneath her silver mask, found herself at the mercy of John's wand. Pointing his wand at Rita, John's voice was low and threatening. "Give me one good reason not to feed you to a dragon." "Dear Sir Johnny Silverhand, this is all a terrible misunderstanding," Rita stammered, her hands nervously fidgeting as if she could somehow talk her way out of the predicament. John's response was a half-smile, and with a flick of his wand, a burst of white light exploded at Rita's feet. "An illegal animagus, you say? Now, wouldn't that be an interesting tidbit for the Ministry of Magic?" "I was wrong, Mr. Johnny Silverhand. Please, I beg you, let me go," Rita pleaded, her voice filled with terror. Over the years, she had unearthed countless secrets through her animagus abilities. The thought of the Ministry discovering her secret filled her with dread, knowing well that the officials she had crossed would not hesitate to send her to Azkaban. As she begged for mercy, a curious glint appeared in John's eyes. It seemed fate had delivered him an unexpected ally in the realm of public opinion. Chapter 100, Gallon Awards and Vigilance at the Museum of Dark Arts. Rita Skeeter was in a state of panic, pleading for mercy. She hoped the man standing before her would offer her a way out. Given his ability to cast spells without a wand and make himself visible at will, Rita was certain she stood no chance against him. Despite her bold words in print, Rita was far more cowardly in person when caught. "Rita Skeeter, you're a clever one," John remarked, looking down at her. He opened a drawer, revealing a golden galleon inside, leading Rita to mistakenly believe John intended to bribe her. "I need your help with something." The expression beneath the silver mask was inscrutable, but Rita understood that refusal would result in consequences far worse than imprisonment in Azkaban. Soon after, the Daily Prophet announced a new Lucky Wizard Award, generously sponsored by Johnny Silverhand's store. Rita Skeeter, seizing the opportunity, publicized her interview in the newspaper, portraying Lord Johnny Silverhand as a kind and benevolent figure. He had established the Little Wizard Foundation to offer free assistance to young wizards afflicted by curses. This philanthropic gesture earned him widespread acclaim among the wizarding world's celebrities. Moreover, the introduction of the Lucky Wizard Award significantly boosted the popularity of the Silverhand Johnny store. The promotion was akin to a chocolate frog. Purchasing a Daily Prophet gave readers a chance to win a prize, leading to a surge in the newspaper's sales. The Lucky Wizard Award featured 3 tiers: the Gallon Award, the Sickle Award, and the Nut Award. On the day of the launch, a wizard won the Sickle Award, taking home 700 sickles, a substantial sum. The promotion was a roaring success. An owl flew towards the burrow with a newspaper in its beak. The next morning, Arthur Weasley retrieved his subscription and noticed the Lucky Wizard Grand Prize scratch attached to it. Casually scratching it open, he was stunned by what he saw. The glass he was holding dropped to the table, spilling milk everywhere. Molly rushed in at the sound, ready to scold, but but stopped short when she saw Arthur's blank expression. "I've won," he said, barely able to contain his laughter. "What?" Molly was initially confused, but Arthur's laughter soon made the situation clear. Ron, startled by the commotion, tried to calm their pet, Banbon, who had scampered back to bed in fear. "Has Dad gone mad?" George wondered aloud. "Perhaps it's just an overdose of euphoria," Fred speculated, the twins exchanging knowing glances, questioning if this was one of their pranks. Percy, preoccupied with his campaign for student union president and his studies, paid little attention. However, when the entire family gathered, Mr. Weasley excitedly shared his good fortune. 700 galleons, by Merlin's beard, Molly gasped, overwhelmed by the sudden windfall. She longed to embrace her husband, but restrained herself in front of their children. "I want to use the money for a family trip to Egypt. What do you all think?" Arthur proposed, eager to travel. The Weasleys, not typically savers, unanimously supported the idea. Even Percy, buried in his studies, felt a spark of excitement. Arthur's suggestion was motivated by a desire to give Percy a break from his rigorous academic schedule. The family's unanimous approval set the wheels in motion for planning the trip. Rita Skeeter, tasked with delivering the award, was puzzled by the generous prize awarded to the Weasleys. The only clue was a single printed sheet lacking the Weasleys' address. However, Rita dared not question the decision, as she was under Johnny Silverhand's control and keen to avoid a lifetime in Azkaban. Arthur Weasley, now preoccupied with his unexpected windfall, temporarily shelved his grievances with the Malfoys. The Malfoy family, always meticulous in their travels, found themselves in a rare moment of respite. It was during this time that Lucius Malfoy decided to pay a visit to Johnny Silverhand. Upon encountering the enigmatic gaze beneath the silver mask, Lucius couldn't help but ponder the true nature of the man before him. "Lucius Malfoy, I'm very pleased to see you here," John greeted, his voice carrying an undertone of significance, especially when he added, "even if you are a Death Eater." Lucius felt a chill run down his spine, his usual arrogance melting away as he faced John. An uneasy smile crept onto his pale face as he attempted to deflect. "I was indeed under the control of the imperious curse by a mysterious figure, but that doesn't mean I'm—" "You don't have to be afraid, Lucius," John interjected, stepping closer with a calm, measured pace that echoed softly in the room. Lucius tensed, a sheen of sweat forming on his forehead as his anxiety spiked. As John reached for Lucius's left hand, Lucius instinctively raised his wand, only to meet John's inscrutable gaze. "I don't mind. On the contrary, I appreciate you," John said, his voice tinged with amusement. Lucius sensed a profound understanding from John, feeling as though there were no secrets he could keep. John noticed Lucius's grip on his wand tighten and then relax. "Relax, I won't expose you. On the contrary, my ability to offer you everything comes not from the Death Eaters, nor the Ministry of Magic, but from the Malfoys themselves." After a moment of hesitation, Lucius, visibly unnerved, asked, "What do you want?" "Friendship." John replied simply, a concept so foreign to Lucius that it seemed almost surreal. The word was one Voldemort, whom Lucius had once followed, would never utter. Sensing Lucius's disbelief, John handed him a copy of today's Daily Prophet, which featured an article indicating that Arthur Weasley would not be troubling Lucius for some time. This gesture of goodwill eased Lucius's apprehensions. "You wish for my friendship, correct?" Lucius inquired, looking into John's eyes for confirmation. "Lucius, as a Malfoy, you should know the value of friendship. It's a bond as significant as blood. We will support each other. Just as I have assisted you today, you will aid me tomorrow," John explained, extinguishing a candle with a wave of his hand, only to relight it with a turn. Offering his hand to Lucius, he smiled. "Isn't that so?" After a brief pause, Lucius grasped John's hand, responding with a newfound respect. "You are correct, Sir Johnny Silverhand. The Malfoys are honored to be your friend." The pureblood family's connections often stemmed from intermarriages, creating a network of kinship akin to a vast tree with numerous branches. However, these branches had begun to wither, and the once powerful lineage of the 28 sacred families was now in decline. Recognizing the opportunity for alliance presented by the new king of Nocturne Alley, Lucius understood this was a strategic move to regain influence, especially crucial for someone with his past as a Death Eater. Lucius, intrigued by the prospect of preserving his status and avoiding the Ministry of Magic's scrutiny, inquired about handling black magic items. John, with a mysterious smile, hinted at a place where one could legally possess such artifacts outside the Ministry's purview. "Are you referring to the Museum of the Dark Arts?" Lucius asked, puzzled. John confirmed, explaining that with the right approach, even the most dangerous items could be managed legally, offering Lucius a glimpse into a world where power and alliances could redefine their standings in the magical community. John had a brilliant idea: to establish the first museum dedicated to the dark arts within the wizarding world. His rationale was compelling. He argued that the public needed to be educated about the dangers of dark magic artifacts. After all, one couldn't expect the average witch or wizard to recognize such items on sight. Thus, the necessity of the museum was undeniable. John cleverly pointed out, how can people understand the dangers if they are not exposed to them? This perspective made the museum not only an educational institution, but also a preventative measure against the dark arts. To ensure the legality of his endeavor, John applied for the necessary permits from the Ministry of Magic. He likened the process to the difference between tomb raiding and archaeology. Without a license, one was a criminal, but with it, one was a scholar. The ministry, seeing the potential benefits of such an institution, offered no resistance. Furthermore, the idea promised to be a feather in the cap of the current Minister of Magic, Cornelius Fudge, showcasing his administration's proactive stance against the dark arts. As for the museum's exhibits, John had a certain level of discretion. He reasoned that if an item were to go missing or be reported as destroyed, it could easily be chalked up to theft or an unfortunate accident. This flexibility in managing the museum's collection was a clever safeguard against potential mishaps or criticisms. The wizarding newspapers quickly caught wind of the project and lauded John, affectionately dubbed His Excellency Johnny Silverhand, as a kind and great wizard for his visionary initiative. Thus, under John's leadership, the planning for the world's first magic museum dedicated to the dark arts began in earnest. This museum was not just a repository of forbidden knowledge, but a bold statement against the ignorance that often surrounded the dark arts. By bringing these artifacts into the light, John aimed to demystify them, and in doing so, protect the wizarding world from their dangers. The community awaited the museum's opening with bated breath, eager to see what secrets it would unveil.